Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with one or more creators, authors, illustrators, publishers, or other movers and shakers in games, TV, books, movies, or other areas of the Geekverse. Regular guests include Douglas A. Burton, the author of Faraway Bird, a multi-award-winning historical fiction novel of the Byzantine Empress Theodora. He's also the author of The Heroine's Labyrinth, an alternative story structure to the hero's journey that often occurs in stories with feminine heroes. That structural framework frequently comes up in our analysis of story. Brianna de Silva, she's the director and co-writer of The Cultists, a Lovecraftian comedy mockumentary-style web show here on YouTube, and the author of The City of Reckoning, an epic fantasy novel of political intrigue, the ethics of war, and young love. Cameron Pasha is a screenwriter, director, novelist, and was a writer and producer on the series Kings, a producer on NBC's Bionic Woman, and a co-producer and writer for Sleeper Cell. He's also written for the CW series Nikita and Roswell, New Mexico. He's been breaking news from inside Lucasfilm, Disney, and Hollywood. His analysis and commentary have become very popular on YouTube. We regularly meet to discuss and analyze stories, and when we do, we dive into graduate-level seminars on story structure and writing. Come on in and let's go deep. And when I say we're going deep, I mean you'd better bring your hard suit. Other guests have included Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels Once Upon a Unicorn, the creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price, the book that explains why the Millennium Falcon is on the planet Batu at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Mark Tassin, the creator of the World of Ataltis, head of Mechanical Muse, former director of the Gen Con Writers Symposium, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. Let's see, who else?
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. But I have interviewed Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games, crowdfunder extraordinaire, and publisher of many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. Brian Colin, sculptor of the world of Revelo, Monster Busts, and the creator of the vast, grim, dark horror RPG. Ajit George, the Dungeons & Dragons author. We talked about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and the development of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel.
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, the commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne, and the goddess of death.
Well, actually, that interview got rather spicy, so I think I'd better just keep that one to myself. Kate Wilson, a YouTuber, actress, host, and prolific geek guru who's now working to make a new show dedicated to the world of tabletop gaming a reality. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, because it's time to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and all of geekdom through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk.
Hey everyone, welcome. It is so good to have everyone here. Welcome to my home, welcome to the office, and welcome to Table Talk. It is so great to have everyone. You know, tonight's very special because the reason that we got involved with Arcane in the beginning really was because of the community. I mean, I believe Brianna was big on it, I think, but I remember Sable Phoenix talking about how much we needed to watch Arcane, and so I said, hey, let's do it. And then I absolutely loved it, and that generated, a couple of episodes about Arcane here. And now, finally, for everyone, Arcane Season 2 is happening, and that is occasion to basically get the whole gang back together. And so I would like to welcome, for this discussion of Arcane Season 2, Act 1, which is the first 3 episodes, and there will be spoilers, please welcome Douglas A. Burton and Brianna de Silva. Hey!
All right. Been a while, guys.
Yes, too long.
It's great seeing everybody. Awesome seeing the chat. This is good. It's good to be back.
Welcome, everybody. Yes.
It does seem like it's been a while. How long has it been since we did an episode, a live one?
I don't know how long.
Well, Brianna and it was just last week.
Right.
Yeah, so I was able to hang out
Doug
with
and I had
Brianna.
over about a bottle and wine and a half, I think.
Yeah.
We were having basically on Table Talk until about 2:45 in the morning by mistake.
Yeah, it was
So-
like table talk uncensored. Off camera.
That's what happens when you get, multiple writers in a room. You just start talking about things. We're talking about like philosophical.
Yeah, we
stuff.
covered some ground, but honestly, that's what I expected, and that's what I loved about it. And also, in addition to hanging out with Brianna and just kind of getting to know Brianna even more in person, which was awesome.
Yeah, I
were
visited
able to-
Austin. That's the subtext that people might not miss.
Yeah. So Brianna got to go down to Austin and hung out with Doug in person.
Yep.
Yeah, this didn't take place in like Anchorage, Alaska, or anything.
Yeah, just to be clear.
And Brianna, I
but
feel
yeah,
like
and-
we should say it looks like Brianna of the amazing hair. You got some amazing hair going on tonight.
Yeah, thanks. I'm at the
like it.
clear edge, so it's like almost all the blonde is almost gone. So everyone, they see it and they think it's a new color. It's literally just there's just a little tiny bit of blonde left. Like the next time I cut it, it'll be all gone. So I'm gonna dye it again soon. But I like to keep it at this stage because it looks like it's a new hairstyle, even though it's not. And everyone's always like,
I like
"Oh,
it. It's very Pompadourian,
It's what?
like a pompadour.
I don't know what
You
that
ever
is.
heard that word?
No,
Huh? Have you never heard that word?
no. I'm about to
Here, look it up
now,
real quick.
Pompadour.
Yeah, I could tell there was no reaction there.
Oh,
I mean,
Okay. Sure.
no, not
Yeah,
Dorian.
Kind of, sort of what it is.
Well, the example that Google brings up is rather extreme. That's like from like the 18th century.
Oh, okay.
All I have is pictures of
Um,
Pompadourians. That's not what I mean.
Pompadour. Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
pompadour. It just means a big wave in the front.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of what it means. Just a
Maybe that was
high,
the word I
big
needed when I was describing this several months ago to my hairstylist. I was like,
pompadour.
I'm like a big afro, not afro, like kind of like a big like mohawk, but like slicked back. And I like showed her some pictures and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And there might be other terms now, but pompadour for sure.
And Brianna, you've also designed your lighting for the episode specifically to look like a Kim Lord of the Shimmer.
Ooh.
I love it. I love it.
This is actually what my
Okay.
room looks like pretty much every night around this time. So I just felt
They're
like instead
shaking
of
too
being
much
normal-
shimmer.
Is this what it looks
I was
like when
like-
you're writing?
This is like my evening look because I like to like kind of like go through sunset colors a little bit and then to like I don't know I'm just extra sometimes and then by the time I go to bed it's like oh yes the sun has set.
Okay, we want to do a little bit of catch up before we get into it, because it has been a while since we've been all together. So I know Doug's got some stuff going on, so we'll ask him, and then after we talk to Doug, I'll talk to you, Brianna, if there's stuff following up that you want to talk about. So Doug, what has been going on with you since we have last sat here and had a conversation? I know there have been some stuff. You put some stuff on social media.
Yes. So I have a little announcement to make. I'm very happy. But the Heroines Labyrinth has won a couple of awards here. Two kind of a smaller awards. There's an Indie Brag Award that it won, and then it won a gold medal for the Literary Titan Award. They give out golds and they give out silvers. If you win, and it won a gold medal, so that was awesome. And then a couple days, I think they announced it today, but they told me 2 days ago. It won the largest award so far. It won the Best Indie Books Award, the BIBA, B-I-B-A Award, for nonfiction for writing craft. And this award is unique. It's for 2024. And there's several categories, but they do not give out gold, silver, or honorary or bronze or honorary mentions. Most awards will break it down like that. So there's multiple award winners per category. This one, there's one winner per category, and that is it. And Heroines Labyrinth won the writing craft category for 2024. So I'm super excited about that. And I hope it's a good sign for things to come. So I know a lot of the Heroines journey publicly, the journey started very much on Table Talk. So just giving you guys the update, all is well on that one.
Excellent. Hey, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Doug.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
That is fantastic, Doug.
Yeah.
I'm very glad to hear it. Brianna, what's been going on with you?
It's funny. I was trying to sit there and think, like, if there is anything to give as an update, since because I don't know when. I can't remember when we last had a table talk. But I don't think there is anything to say. I've just been quietly in my corner, getting stuff done, writing. I'm working on the sequel to City of Reckoning. Working on some other projects as well. But no particular updates at the moment. I'm just.
But you're planning on it. You're attacking the City of Reckoning sequel, and with the anticipation of getting it out very soon.
Yeah, so I guess I should say that. Yeah, my goal is to get it out next summer. That's my goal. That's not my promise. That is not the release date, but my goal is to get it out next summer. So yeah. And yeah, there's so much that's been like on my mind, but it's not really worth mentioning here. It's not really updates. It's more just shifting strategies as a self-published author and things I want to get better about. So yeah.
So was it some of the stuff you were talking to me about?
Huh?
Covered? Is that like
yeah,
was it some of the
like,
stuff we were talking about?
Yeah, I'm gonna give City of Reckoning a new cover. That's something I'm gonna do sometime next year as well. I guess I might as well share that. We're creatives; people might appreciate the thinking there. Because what I've realized is like it's a very it's a good cover. It's aesthetically, it's well done, professional, etc. But it's not the right cover for its niche. Like it's not communicating its subgenre very well. I did a bunch of market research. I kind of knew that intuitively, but I confirmed that for myself, and I was like, "Yep, they need a different cover." So so that's something that I'm going to do, and I know what it'll be, and I think I know which designer to use and stuff too. But yeah, so that's something to look forward to, I suppose. It'll have a new look on multiple levels. Before the book 2 comes out.
Okay,
so I guess
well, that's
if you were thinking about getting a physical copy, actually wait until then, I suppose. Till the new.
You can see up above me. This is City of Reckoning there.
Sure is.
So I have the collector's item now.
Yes, that's gonna. Well, maybe
on
that is a reason.
On the other hand, if you want one of the original, now would be the time.
True. Might have higher value later.
Could become a collector's item. Yes. So let's say hello to everybody in this. We got the Titter Pig Rancher, that's Sable Phoenix. So welcome. We got Titter Pig here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to know.
In the interim,
Phoenix has been reborn as Titter Pig Rancher.
Yeah. We've had a lot of stuff going on. We're developing our own network here on Table Talk Network because James Bacon has launched the Better with Bacon channel. And Sable Phoenix has launched the Titter Pig Rancher.
And I will be launching a channel. It's just it's a lot of work up front on my end.
That's right. So Doug is also going to be launching his own channel. I know I was talking to you about that in the coffee shop in the mornings. So Doug is coming out with his own channel. James Bacon has come out with his own channel. Sable Phoenix is coming out with a channel. I don't think anything is posted on it yet, but there's all of that stuff happening. So we're developing our own network.
I just want to say I am not planning to develop my own channel. I just thought I'd
We'll have a not launch party for you.
I have a YouTube channel just for my short films, and that's all it's going to be there, probably.
Hey, that's fine. That works.
So we got Druden Fuzz here. Welcome. We got Charlie here. Here comes Better with Bacon in here. Welcome. We got BGD. Welcome. Yes, right. So Titter Pig Rancher says setting up a YouTube channel is way more work than you think. It will be when you start one for the first time. It absolutely is.
Yeah, man. I have been burning the midnight oil, and I'm still not ready to go. It's amazing.
So my update is that definitely a lot of my energy has been going toward the Cultist YouTube channel, which is the Cultist is the web show that I created and that I co-wrote with Brianna, and Brianna directed it. I produced it. And so we have been relaunching it on its own channel, the Cultist YouTube channel. And I'm just looking right here at the statistics right now. And currently we have 5,131 subscribers.
That's amazing.
Over on the Cultist YouTube channel. So that is amazing. So that's the major update. I've been hitting that one. I've been hitting that hard. There's a lot of other things to be doing with that, but I am very, very happy about the response that that has been receiving. We were up to 5,131 subscribers as of this very moment.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a great job right there, man. So whatever you're doing, it's working.
It's the most sophisticated advertising campaign I've ever designed.
Wow. Well, there you go.
So there we go. And I'm learning a lot about getting that out there so I can do it again with other things that I want to create. So yes, if you're over there on the cultist side of things, thank you very much for being there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So, okay, we have watched. So this is about Arcane. We have done a discussion on Arcane. Then I had a discussion with James Bacon and Sable Phoenix, now Titter Pig Rancher, about the season 1 here on the channel. But now we are now into season 2. So finally. So it has been a while. I think it's been like 3 years or something. No, it hasn't been 3 years since I had watched it. But it's been like 3 years since it was originally released.
Damn.
I did go back on Sunday. I was going to start watching, and I said, let me start with season 1, episode 9. And I started, and I was like, no, wait a minute. I got to go back before that. And then I went back to the beginning, that like episode 8 and then 7. It's like, no, wait a minute. Watched like 3 minutes of each. No, wait a minute. So I decided to go back and rewatch the whole thing.
That's
so
cool,
I rewatched all of season 1 and then led into season 2 for this. I have I don't have a whole lot of written notes, but I do have a lot of thoughts. So what's the best way for us to get started?
Doug,
well,
want
to bring up a screen or something?
I didn't know if you wanted an image there or not. I just put it up there if you
I'll bring it up.
There.
I'll bring it up. All right, here we go.
Okay. Yeah, just here, let me see if I can. How do I get it to where it's not? You don't see this.
We don't want to see all of your tabs. Well, let's see if there's anything embarrassing, guys.
There shouldn't be.
Full screen up there.
Oh, well, wait, don't look up there. Yeah, I mean, I just thought it'd be an image, something to have. I guess I could try to save it or something.
So, well, that's right. There we go. So yes, that's our image for season 2. So we've been looking forward to this. And when I saw the teaser trailer for it, I was really excited about it because,
Me too.
there has not been a whole lot of television that I've been very excited about. House the Dragon was one, and Doug and I talked about that. I know Brianna didn't watch that one. That might be why it's been so long since we've been together, because Brianna was not in on that one. But Doug and I talked about that one. And ultimately, we thought season 2 ended up disappointing. And so, so even that, which I was really psyched about, ended up kind of disappointing. So,
well, I'll say this.
What are everybody's initial impressions? Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
Right. I'll say this, and I'm sure I speak for everybody. And if I don't on this one point, then just add context or put me in check. Season 1 of Arcane is phenomenal. I think of it as a television event. I think of it as a masterclass in storytelling. I think of it as a masterclass in animation. There's so much to like about it. In fact, I like just about every layer that can be for season 1 of Arcane. It blew me away when I saw it. It was one of the few shows in recent memory where I sat there and I was absolutely captivated by the character dramas going on, multiple character dramas. It didn't matter which character you spun the bottle with, whoever it pointed on, you cared about what happened to that character. So Arcane season 1 is safe. The legacy of that season is safe. I will go back and rewatch that multiple times. It is good enough to be a standalone season, even though it ends with a kind of event-changing moment or circumstance-changing moment. But it's still a self-contained story with multiple character arcs that rose and fell. So whatever I say about season 2 has no impact, as far as I'm concerned, on Arcane season 1. So I just want to get that out because I feel like Arcane season 2 is different enough to make that distinction. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. I wanted to make sure that I preserved the excellence that was season 1 as we perhaps dive into season 2 with possibly some more critical, with a more critical eye or more critical comments at least.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, for me, it's like it's incredibly hard for me to be in a state of analysis because, I mean, for 2 reasons. One, like obviously the story isn't over. We only have the first act, and
Correct.
2, it's just so good. Like it's just as with season 1, it's very hard for me to like be anything except a viewer. Like I'm just so swept away by the story and by the characters. So I have like, yeah, my thoughts are very, very loose and very incomplete. And a lot of me is just kind of like, just waiting for what happens next,
Right.
So, yeah.
Things could change.
What's that?
Yeah, things could change. I mean, you can't judge the whole thing by 3 episodes or Act 1.
I'm intrigued.
And there are plenty of stories that get settled in.
Because for me, it was still perfect. I mean, I have like one sort of minor complaint, but it's barely even one. Like when I get to it, you'll see what I mean.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued to know what doesn't work for you, because it still very much is working for me.
If I had to address it briefly, I would say so far, the first 3 episodes, I felt like this was really heavy-handed on style and not as heavy-handed on substance as season 1. They did a lot. It's like they pulled out all the tricks they could to try to compensate for the thinner storytelling. Really heavy on the music videos and animation swaps, things that they did in season 1, but they seem to have paced it out and they picked their moments. And I felt like they did it at a good, they kind of crammed it all in up front here. And I felt like it got a little cluttered and it wasn't working at the same level for me anyway. So far, it could all change.
So, okay. So,
go
ahead, Brianna, finish.
The only potential, thing that might like a potential counterpoint, maybe I don't know if that's even the right term.
Sure
Is that like, we just ended with a really heavy, really like bombshell moment, and like I feel like there has to be a bit of a pause, especially
literally
like the first episode. Like there has to be all the emotional processing, and the plot in some ways kind of has to slow down for a second. Otherwise it would feel otherwise, for obvious reasons, it would be
well. I'll say this.
I have thoughts on that. Which I'll bring
and
go ahead.
Me too. The opening, or the leave, so to say, of season 1. Heath, what were you going to say?
Let me bring up what Better with Bacon says here. Better with Bacon says, completely agree. It's a complete story. We didn't need more. Sable and I said as much in our stream from Sunday, and I was going to bring that up.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't feel that way
because I had never thought about that before, and it leads into what you were talking about, Brianna. That in retrospect, season 1 is a complete story. Now it doesn't seem that way, but she launches the missile or the whatever, the rocket propelled grenade or whatever it is into the council chamber, and it breaks the glass and you end. Okay, so now what happens next? I definitely wanted to know.
Right.
But there is a line
for sure.
There is a line that Jinx speaks in episode 2. I rewatched a little bit of episode 2 before I started this again. And it's when Jinx is talking to Silco's corpse underwater. And she says, well, it's all gone to shit. But that's exactly what you knew at the end of season 1. Like, what happens after that rocket propelled grenade or whatever it is goes through the window of the council chamber? That's it. So in that sense, it's an expected end. Like, what happens after that? At the end of season 1, Chaos won. Jinx broke free. She launches this missile. What happens after that? Chaos, war, all of that. In a sense, how the story is going to go. And I hadn't really thought about that before until she said that word. And until she said that line, and I was like, that's right. That was obvious after season 1. And that's why you ended on that Chaos won. And now it is, everything's crazy. I mean, of course, everything could be crazy after that because that happened, everything is crazy.
Yeah, I had a feeling, especially watching episode 1, of just like this, how would I describe it? This sort of like horrible inevitability, like you see the path that's coming, and you want it to not happen, you know, but it's like, but you know, just because, and that's what I appreciate so much about this show is how human it is and how like it's just such a painful reflection of, you know, cycles of violence and things like that. And so like you just know, you know, like you understand the decisions these characters are making even when you don't agree with them.
Well, that's part of what made Arcane so great is everyone had shades of darkness there, you know, everyone.
Yeah, and you're seeing, especially with, I would say, especially with Vi and Caitlin, with our lead up to season 2, you're seeing a dark path, especially Caitlin. You're like, oh God, but you understand why she is that way. You understand why things are going in the direction they're going because you're like, I've seen that happen, you know, in real life, in, you know, human civilization so many times, and you don't want it to happen, but it's like it's happening anyway. And that was kind of like this, like the heaviness that I was feeling, especially in the first episode. Is just like, yeah, like you're like, no, you want things to go in a different direction, but you know it's not going to. It's like this cycle that just perpetuates itself.
Well, I felt like, so it opens up with the wreckage, you know, of the council chamber and all that. It felt to me, and this happens as a writer, Brianna, I'm sure you've run into this, where like a character kills somebody and you're like, the obligatory, I feel remorse because I killed somebody scene, or, you know, there's a death in the fan. And sometimes you get stuck with an emotional moment that you just don't feel like dealing with. Or when you write it, it bogs the story down or it slows it down. I felt that the writers were almost stuck with the opening sequence. They're like, okay, she blew up the council chamber. Now we're stuck with dealing with this aftermath, where you're leading off with this sort of, oh my God, this is so bad. This is really bad. I mean, look at all the wreckage. This is so bad. This person's dead. And I just felt like that's such an anticlimactic way to open. We know that, like, you can ask anyone to run a simulation in their head. Like, what would it be like after it blew up? Well, there'd be a lot of wreckage. There'd be a lot of rubble, a lot of sadness. There'd be deaths, and there'd be people upset about the death. I feel like all of that is so obvious and easily known that this story would have benefited by skipping that. Not entirely. You can go back to it. You can revisit issues. You can see where the characters are. You can catch up with them. I think this should have picked up with a full-scale conflict. The invasion of Zaun, I think, is where this movie should, or this series started. Full scale. Like, bring in all the big guns, bring in all the tactical gear, full armor, show Caitlin. And people be like, whoa, start with conflict, like massive. Team A, Team B conflict. Start there, because that's what we don't know how that's going to look. That's the part that I think will keep us on edge. That's how I think episode 3 ended. And I started perking up pretty hardcore with the end of episode 3. But I did feel like I was dragging, like the story felt like it had to bring me through these emotional moments that I just wasn't that invested in it.
I think that is a great point, Doug. Okay, so from the storytelling perspective, and this actually does relate to what the thing that we do sometimes, Brianna. But okay, there was a deliberate decision that was made here because this is the end of the season. So it could have had an opportunity for a time skip. If you didn't, but we have like no time skip here. So there was a deliberate decision made here.
You're right.
That we are going to follow season 2 like immediately to the second, you know, or whatever, following season 1. I did have like one thought. My thought was, okay, there had better be some serious ramifications of this RPG that's gone to the council chamber.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is Mel and Jace are not injured. They walk out without a problem. You do kill other council members, critically Kate's mother, you know, that is going to become that situation.
That's the biggest consequence, I would say.
Which is the biggest well, then also, I
forgot what's his name.
Victor.
Victor.
You know, and I have not looked at a lot of other people's analysis, but I did just happen to see some stuff on Reddit about analyzing everybody's position at the time of the RPG strike, and where they were, and why is it that Mel and Jace were able to leave, and implying there's something magical about Mel that she was able to protect. Because why did Mel and Jace leave without any type of injury?
That's true. Nothing's ever unintentional in the show. Because he makes a comment about that. He's like, we were right next to each other. Why did I walk away without
right
threat?
next? Exactly.
You're right. There's probably a reason.
People have been bringing up, if you see like complex, you can see complex diagrams on Reddit about their positions on, at the impact, and did Mel have something to do with this? And so those two walked away unscathed, but there are theories going on that maybe there was some reason why they walked away when the others died. One person ended up, crippled. Solo, not
Sallow.
but Sallow.
I only know that because I have a character with that same name in my book, so I was like, oh.
But my point was, that's a deliberate decision that was made to follow this up this season instantly.
Yeah.
And so we follow up with, okay, we're going to end up with the consequences of this, which I was glad that, people died. There are consequences. Maybe there are potential story reasons why the people who did walk away unscathed did that might be revealed later. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I would have we should have had a serious conversation in the writer's room. Do we follow this up instantly, or do we do something like showing this off with a show of starting this off with a show of force from the Overcity into the nation of Zaun? That, okay, what's the consequence of this? Okay, it's this, and then we're gonna piece together what happened after this, because it could have been like well, okay, we do start season 1 with a very emotional beginning, kind of abstract beginning. So maybe you could have mirrored that, some kind of abstract beginning, and then like season 1 went into the heist. You go into Caitlin and Vi in conducting special operations in the city of Zaun. I don't know. It's an interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. But you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
I agree that if you're going to follow it up, this has to be a low note. If you're going to go instant follow up, it has to be a follow up.
Yeah, I actually really disagree with this. I think that if like for me as a viewer, if we were to start with something like that, I think I would feel cheated. Like we need to see the emotional impact of what's happened, and it doesn't seem like you can earn. Like you have to earn that. Like if we're going to go and then see like the political ramifications of things, I think we need to lead up to it, and specifically because this is a very human-led story, right? Like we need to see why these characters are making these decisions, and I want to see that arc before they act. Personally,
what would you think about if they focused on one or maybe two characters dealing with it and starting with those characters to move out from that? Because I feel like what happened is, the second they hit slow down, the slow down button, and they're like, okay, we're going to just really stick with the aftermath here. Suddenly they're moving from character to character. And then pretty soon it's like, I get it. Like everyone's sad. This is bad. Everything's ruined. Like I get that. And it just kept going and going and going for me. So I felt like they ended up getting trapped in this sort of, let's just, we have to show this person's reaction. Now we got to show this. So they try to catch everybody up with every character in this slow context. And but by the time they were doing it, I was like, man, there's very little information I'm getting from this. She's mad. I figured she'd be mad. Oh, her mom died. She's going to be upset at that. I get that. I figured she'd be upset about that. So like there was nothing that was necessarily exciting me or surprising me. It was just like obligatory. This is bad. There's a lot of chaos. Everyone's sad. They want vengeance. It seemed a little predictable for me as far as watching it goes.
Hey, let's just do a couple super chats. So Better with Bacon for $10 says, the dialogue in season 2 kills me. I am character and I feel this way. I am character and I feel this way. You can't know how I feel. I do know how you feel.
What are you referencing, Bacon?
Okay, so what are you? Okay, so we got the question about what
I did feel that the dialogue was leveled down a little bit. So far, there was a few flickers of goodness.
I see. I also happen to agree with this. The animation swaps, like when you go to a completely different animation style, and we are now on a soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
We've been doing that in season 1 though too. Did it bother you guys there as well?
So here's the difference. In season 1, the characters were so compelling that the sort of stylization that they did, because they would change the animation style, they'd play music. I felt like the style drafted off the strength of the character. And so in that way, it was camouflage. You just bought it. I didn't care. I never questioned. It never disrupted anything. It just heightened. It augmented the characters because the style was drafting off This feels like they led with style, and the style was like dragging the character behind it. And I was like, it just didn't feel the same. It was a little bit more jarring for me.
That's how it felt. I guess that's kind of how it felt to me too, because I don't feel like we did lead off with like one episode with the Imagine Dragons soundtrack and stuff like that. When they're pushing the music video, I felt like as I was watching that, man, they are really pushing the visual style, and they were. I mean, they completely pushed the visual style on those. But I was like, okay, we're going into another musical interlude. I mean, like I said, I just watched the season 1, a few days ago. There are a couple of times they do that in the season, right? But it seemed like
they lead off immediately with music.
Well, there was the leading off with Imagine Dragons, which we talked about. That okay, you're inserting the Imagine Dragons into
that was like a pure music video.
Right, we're starting with this and we're going into this. So I mean, maybe. I mean, I might feel. I mean, maybe I changed my mind about that. But it did feel like I felt like every time the music video started, I was like, okay, let's skip it. The Titter Pig Rancher for $5 says, sounds like you picked up on a lot of the same weaknesses that stood out to me too, Doug. In my opinion, they should have skipped episode 1 entirely and started at episode 2.
Now,
I think we just
you froze,
Doug. Oh, Doug just froze. If you can hear us, you just froze. Let's see. So we'll go down to the Titter Pig Rancher.
It's so weird that I'm the odd one out here because like I literally like don't agree with any of these critiques. Like at all. I mean, it's probably it also just feels to me like such like I don't know, nitpicky things. Like I don't know.
Now here's an incredible moment that you that I feel like you really needed to see. Now here was that when Kate offered Vi the badge.
Yeah. That's a very important character.
I'm going to take Doug down. Doug, in fact, I'm just going to text him and tell him that you froze, Doug. He may already know by now, but just
he might be refreshing it. Hopefully.
Oh yeah, he just clicked out. So, but okay, I thought that was a great moment because it seems to be the way that it should have gone. With everything that is happening here, that has happened in this show. It completely made sense for Kate to offer her a badge. And then in that moment, I also completely understood why Vi had to reject it.
Right. We're waiting for this. Anyone that knows anything like about Vi's character, we know that eventually she's going to become an enforcer. So it's like, all right, this is the moment. But of course she can't yet. Like it goes against everything, in her past, like everything she was before. Oh, okay. I thought you were frozen too.
No. I just got Doug through my phone. So and telling me that you froze because I wasn't getting it through this other way. Right. Well, no, I don't know anything about her character, but that seemed to make sense. Here, come on, you be an enforcer, because but then because from Vi's character perspective, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go I'm going to go on this attack myself when these people are also going on the attack with me? Right. We might as well be on the same side. Am I really going to be a vigilante third party completely connected when at the moment my goals completely align with what these people are doing?
Right. That's a very interesting note that her goals are aligned with them.
Exactly.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
So that's why it makes sense for Kate to offer, and it makes complete sense for her to accept, except for there is emotional baggage. And so it also makes complete sense for her to go, no, I can't do that. But then it's like, well, so what are you going to do? You're just going to go off on your own?
Right. She spent her whole life resenting those people,
Are you going to fight this entire thing by yourself? Right. And then I did like the scene with the the enforcer who comes up and talks to her, the young lady, after she's drinking with the guy who we don't really know. And we still don't end up knowing. And then she does. Here's Doug.
Doug's back.
Doug's back. Okay.
It's funny because I
talking
can
about
see on my phone that I was frozen, and I was like, "Man, you got to be careful. You never know what face you're going to pull when you're frozen."
We took you down. That's fine.
Yeah, we were talking about the Vi becoming an enforcer and that conflict.
But I do want to point out that in season 1 we do use flashbacks. So it could have been a surprise in season 2 if you wanted to start on action. We'll start with a sort of abstract scene, and then we will start with her as an enforcer with Kate.
Mm-hmm.
But then in other episodes, we're going to use flashbacks to show the conflict that took and the consequences of that. So you could have done
that
it
would be
that way.
emotionally satisfying. I wouldn't want to see her as I want to see that journey. I feel like that's so important.
I mean,
well, it's just how you handle it.
What's that?
It could be how you handle it. So I'm sorry, Heath. Go ahead.
Well, I would say yes. I mean, I agree. Like the disadvantage of moving forward is you don't see Vi's journey. You'd have to show that in flashback because that's an important thing to see.
That would not work. Sorry.
But
why don't
it
you
might
think it
not
would
work.
work?
I mean, that could be the core issue that we're going to have to go through this because even though season 1 uses, I think, flashbacks to great effect,
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, this is a part of the story that cannot be told in flashback. We're going to need to see this in real time.
Well, so
I'll make my
Vi's
argument. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was wondering what you were going to say.
Oh, okay. I think this series, this story, it's like fundamentally about change, and like so much of what we're exploring is these characters changing. And so for me to skip some of that, like my one and only critique I'm going to come to is actually that I want a little bit more of that. That I felt there was a little bit of change that was off screen. I was like, I need to see that. Like I feel like that's, if you were to skip or do that not chronologically, I think you're like missing what is most fundamental to the story. And as a viewer, at least personally, like that's, I think what I'm most invested in is seeing these characters and who they're becoming, both sometimes watching in horror. And yeah, like that I think drives everything else. So that's why I would have done that.
Yeah, well, and listen, you're not wrong about the idea of watching characters go through change. The issue is what Powder, I almost called her Powder. How ridiculous is that?
Wrong name.
What Jinx did that is a cataclysmic event.
Yeah.
This is an event that changes everything. So this is, my issue with Vi isn't that we don't, by skipping ahead, that we skip her change. Because when you fire a missile into a government council room, that's not Vi's story right there. Not that event. Vi is going to be on the sidelines to kind of see what happens next, at least at first. The people most affected are the people in that council chamber and, the survivors and all that. So I feel like maybe you could focus on one or two of those characters who's directly impacted. But to try to get Vi's change in that, I think is a little bit of a tricky thing to do because you're kind of inserting her in something before the conflict really comes to her door. She's kind of anticipating this conflict and then teaming up with the police, which is I feel like it's still a little bit of an odd play for her. But, I don't know. I don't feel like we would have missed anything with Vi. I think they added Vi into that situation a little early for the event that took place. I feel like the ball's in the court up top and Piltover, that's like a September 11th type of moment that's a big deal. So, the people who did that, they could be bracing for, here comes America, but that's not where the real story is at that point. I think you've moved the story up top to see how these people react. I think you could have shown the explosion, maybe show a bunch of people's reaction to the event and the awareness that everything's going to change. And then maybe go to like a funeral or someone's lying in state and someone gives the speech right then and there that this, we will not forget, what happened, that we are now marshaled. We're united in our decision to go solve this once and for all. We're going into Zon to seek justice for the people who did this. I feel like that's your leave. That's where this scenario left us.
What's the difference between what you're describing and what's in the first episode? You've seen it twice, so it's more fresh in your head.
Because I think they tried to go with everybody in the immediate aftermath. So not, after they've had time to process it, where maybe there's a little bit of clarity. They kind of forced us to slug through the sort of, oh man, can you believe this? Look at all the wreckage. The ceiling is damaged, and look, there's a person lying dead over there. I mean, to me, that might work in the middle of a story where the events are like set up, and then you get this payoff, and now you're seeing this sort of shocking imagery. But they're leading off with this, so the emotionalism of that kind of a slow pace, I feel like, is weakened a little bit. We're coming in cold here, and it's like, I didn't feel the overwhelming power of the missile strike by slowing it down that much.
Would you say that, like, if this event happened in the middle of a season, that the pacing wouldn't bother you, but it's because it's the opening to a new season that it's bothering you? Is that accurate?
I think that's very possible, because
it's interesting.
Because
I also think very possible.
Yeah, because if you have a cataclysmic event like that, and it's the middle, and the story is not done, dude, now we are also thrown off guard. We're the ones thrown off guard, and now we're kind of disoriented, right? Like the characters are disoriented. You remember all the imagery after September 11th, people wandering in the haze, and car alarms going off, and visibility of 6 feet. And, there's this disorientation of a cataclysmic event. Disorientation is good to disrupt the story. I don't think it's good to start a story.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it really made me think about the critique that you and I had, Brianna, of The Cultist season 3, when you and I read it, and you and I had the conclusion that, man, the first, like, we wrote like 10 or 12 pages or something like that in, like, what was 80 pages of a script. And we were like, you know what? We wrote all of this that is the response to the end of this season 2. And we probably don't even need that. I was thinking about that very, very much, that we were like, okay, wait a minute. We could actually skip past this because of the consequences, stuff like that, and get deeper into the story faster. That's what I was thinking of when I was analyzing this. The Titterpig, we had a $20 super chat. So the Titterpig Rancher Sable, $20 says, and this is on the same topic here, so this is relevant. The character motivations and the lines of consequences were so established by the end of season 1 that seeing the immediate aftermath of what Jinx does is totally unnecessary. We should have started with a new time skip.
See, I agree with that. I feel like what we needed is to reset the board and prep viewers and characters for the conflict to come, instead of dealing with an epilogue to season 1.
That, I think, that line, because when Jinx says that in episode 2, everything's gone to shit. I think I would have started this whole season. I would have done a time skip, and I would have started with a black screen, and I would have started with Jinx voiceover. Start with that line. Everything's gone to shit. Then you start with whatever. But that's the obvious idea, that communicates that, yes, everyone feels terrible, like whatever. Then you can fill in that who is dead and whatever, and all of that. But I feel like that would have been so powerful if, like, and then maybe even strike a match or something when she's doing something, whatever she's doing or whatever. Everything's gone to shit. Yes, exactly. That's what happened.
Yeah, that line sums it up too.
Right. Yeah. And that line came in episode 2.
Let's see. Yeah. So later in the storytelling.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm being critical, but that doesn't mean I hated season 2. I do want to say that I did feel a thrill at seeing all these characters again. you know, like the animation's the same. So like when you see the characters, like there they are. There's Vi again. There's Jinx. I remember being a little shocked at Vi's entrance. It was surprisingly lackluster. Where was it? Man, I don't know. I have it in my notes here somewhere. There's a few characters they showed us first, and I was like, that's Vi's intro into season 2? Like, anyway, where are my notes? I'm not good at when I take them by hand, they're not as organized. Yeah, there was some kind of a little bit of wonky dialogue here and there too. So anyway, we don't have to belabor the point, but I felt, and of course, you know, there's multiple takes on this. I think it sounds like you're saying you felt that, you know, it was satisfying to kind of go through that in the first episode.
I think I would have been unsatisfied if that wasn't.
If they skipped it. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there is to say, like, your point is very interesting, that it's handling it in a middle of a season way instead of like a opening to a season. And so, you know, maybe there's some solution that would have satisfied both of those things. I think that's very interesting. But I do feel like for me as a viewer, like I need to experience one of my biggest pet peeves is I absolutely hate being like emotionally cheated. Like as a reader, as a viewer, like if I feel like I've been promised some sort of emotional experience and I don't get it, that's like the most irritating thing. And that's like my one and only critique, which I'll share in a second, is like something where there's like a long thing where I wanted a little bit more. And I felt like it was there. I believe that it happened. It felt like it happened off screen. I was like, well, I should have seen that happen.
Well, I agree with that in a general sense.
Personal preference, in other words, I think too. You kind of have to.
Well, I agree with you. You can't skip critical emotional things unless they're disruptive to the story. If they're not helping the story, then you do skip them, or you spend a brief amount of time to address it. I've had to do that. I think all writers have run into this, where you get bogged down into a scene that's really not helping the story, but you're like, she has to go through some emotion here. She has to experience something here, and it bogs it down. And I have found that sometimes skipping those is the right solution, but it is a tricky thing, because if you're skipping vital payoffs, then you're actually weakening the story. So I do think there's a level of discretion there.
I think one of the solutions.
Druid and Fuzz is on your side, Brianna. I just want to note that Druid and Fuzz.
Yeah, Druid and Fuzz seems to also.
I have at least one person that agrees with me.
Druid and Fuzz is with you. I just want to say.
Well, if Brianna likes something, I respect what Brianna says.
I think these are all valid points of view. I just want to mention something too, because I think because I want to try to keep it from a storytelling point of view as well.
Yeah.
Is that one of the ways to potentially solve that kind of a problem, when you're like, okay, like, you know, say there's something that feels like it's emotional payoff that audience will want, but then you as the writer are like, I feel like this is bogging down. I feel like I need to move forward in the story. You can always do both. So you find a way to like have the character have their emotional reaction in the midst of other stuff happening too. I feel like that's like maybe a more obvious solution, and it doesn't work in every situation, but or you're having it in the midst of, you know, some sort of pressure, you know, on the outside. And that could also make someone's emotional processing more intense too, right? Like there's like some plot pressure going on. So I accept that there isn't that much of that in the first episode. And so maybe, but I think I still land in that. I feel like it needs that pause and that breath before we can really ramp up the pressure. Because all of the plot that then comes as a result of how these characters process these things emotionally. I mean, it's like, especially Caitlin so far, right? Like Caitlin, she loses her mother. She's starting to, you know, go down that path of like dehumanization of her enemies. She's starting to use the language that you always see before violence, you know, and it's like, oh no, you know, how could these animals do it? And so, but we have to like see that because of these emotional reactions, that's going to then motivate their choices and their actions.
But do we have to see it? Like, I always think of the Phantom Menace. I like knowing all the details about how we got to the Galactic Republic, how they voted on the clone trooper. But at the end of the day, I was like, they should have started with episode 3. They should have just started with the conflict and gone right into it. So do we need to see Caitlin, cursing a little bit? If we opened with her behaving in a different way, because one thing that I do think about when I have, especially a big transition, like from part 1 to part 2, or from part 2 to part 3, or book 1 to book, contrast is a big thing. This didn't give us any contrast. This just picked up right where I really feel like they picked up with an epilogue. Contrast can be a powerful tool. So when you start with characters ending here, and there's a little bit of a time skip, and the characters are doing something maybe a little unexpected, that can be as long as the author has bridged the gap themselves. Okay, the author knows how they got there on some level. Then the characters are behaving perfectly appropriate, and it's up to the audience to figure out how they got there on some level. And so, if we see Caitlin doing something a little shocking, sometimes it's good to be like, "Whoa, man, what happened here?"
As long as you go back and see it, like I really feel strongly, I do need to see that happen.
Well,
even if it was a flashback.
But I was saying that we have, in this particular show, we have a history of extremely effective use of flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't mean this always is. So it might not work. Maybe they did it and they were like, man, this is not going to work. But I'm just saying, in this particular show, in season 1, it has a history of incredibly effective flashbacks.
Well,
maybe
and
it's not possible to do again. It might not be possible to do again.
Right, but you could do some storytelling with flashbacks. You can also have people reveal a little bit about something. You can fill in the gaps as a storyteller without having to drag the audience through every go minute by minute. That's usually how you get bogged down in a story. It's a trap that all of us will run into. So I just feel like they got caught in this trap here a little bit. It doesn't mean that season 2 is derailed by any stretch. It just means that they opened in a way that I think slowed the story down and disoriented the viewer a little bit. And Drudenfuzz says, guys have only one thing on their mind, and it's violence. I disagree with that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about conflict. And conflict can be shown in different ways.
Yeah,
there's effective conflict, and then there's ineffective conflict. And I think the epilogue side of this was a slightly less effective conflict than if you opened up with more side A and side B. They're at it. Something, this conflict is erupting. We knew it was going to happen. And if we find out how the characters got there as we go, that's okay. Characters change. And by the way, they had some time skips, even in season 1 with some characters who kind of progressed quickly in their arc. So
yeah, and also Drudenfuzz, I would also say that we had, in our discussion of season 1, we had a tremendous amount of discussion about violence and Vi and their association.
Oh, yeah.
Violence.
Right. Violent and violence is even in her name. So I don't think this has something to do with guys and violence. It does have to do with conflict, like Doug is talking about. But if you want to talk about violence, this show has embodied it in Vi, right? Even to the 6th commandment that is tattooed on her face, right? So
I mean, it is kind of funny and interesting. It may be purely coincidental that it's the two ladies here that like how it is, and it's the guys that are dissatisfied because there may be like I was saying, a personal preference there that might be part of it.
Well, here's the thing too. It's also how it's pulled off. It's easy for us to look at what is there now and say, I don't think this worked. It's totally possible that the storytellers did exactly what I'm suggesting. And we didn't like that either. And we're all sitting here saying, man, we don't know how these characters got here. It feels like they skipped too much. So it's easier to critique what is there than it is to critique what hasn't been done. So, I just wanted to say that to be fair.
And we have also committed, I believe, everybody through text message, as I understand, we're going to have a discussion another week about about Act 2 and then Act 3. So our minds could change. I mean, it could be, we've only seen
100%.
1. Yeah.
Right.
And we didn't get to do that when we did the analysis of season 1 because we just did
season 1. We were now analyzing it as a whole.
Yeah.
So
this is only a partial analysis. So I mean that's important too. The Titterpig Rancher for $10. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who sent a super chat. The Titterpig Rancher says the flashbacks in season 1 only occurred as the cold open of episodes and served to prep us for the a character that was going to be the driving force of that episode. They set up a very strong. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna have to find the rest of that. They set up a very strong subconscious storytelling convention by doing that, and have abandoned it entirely in season 2.
That's a good point. That means because season 1 opens with Vi, Xander, and Powder. I mean, that's the core. So what season 1 did is they said, these are your core characters. All the other myriad characters that come into this, all of whom were extremely compelling, by the way, which is a hard trick to pull off as a storyteller. It's still all centered around those 3 characters. I feel like this one was a little unsure of whose storyline we're following a little bit. So again, the time skip could have helped with that as well, but it definitely didn't feel as focused as a story.
We're still setting up. We're still setting up the story.
It's true. And Brianna, it's totally possible because episode 3 ended with what I wanted, which is we have conflict established. We see who's on which team, and we see the feelings behind it. We don't have to be told we don't need to be told that something bad happened to Caitlin. She put her mother in the ground, and now she's ready to go to war. She's ready for this. She's got new allies that we didn't expect. So, we have conflict set up. It is very possible that Act 2 delivers some of what I was expecting Arcane Season 2 to be in terms of conflict and character. I feel like Season 2 just spent a lot of time following up Season 1 and the setup. It took 3 episodes to get there. And so my point is, we might end up agreeing with you that it was worth it to set it all up once we see how once you spring the trap, so to say, in your story. So
yeah, I guess so. Because I mean, in season 1, I feel like the first 3 episodes were a lot of setup too, because that was all the childhood.
I know, but I was thinking as I was watching season 1, as I was watching season 2, that I was like, when I was watching season 1, I was like, oh my God, they ripped my heart out at the end of season 1, episode 3. And I was like, if they're going to do that again, like if they're following the same structure, then, and they are releasing it 3 by 3, that, oh my God, at the end of season 2, episode 3, I'm about to have my heart ripped out again. Yeah. And I didn't quite feel that.
I mean, I still felt like it was really heartbreaking, but we're at a different point in these characters.
Yeah.
Too, so it's a different kind of heaviness. So there's no reason to expect the exact.
Well, I feel like if you're gonna focus, Piltover, what a missed opportunity is then at the very least. Piltover in season 1 was such a compelling steampunk style fantasy world, right? It's like a steampunk it's high civilization. It's this is an apex civilization. It's beautiful. It's corrupt. It's glittering. And now you've got this big hole punched through paradise. And I felt like I didn't feel any of the Paradise Lost sensation. I just felt like this is bad. Look at all the bad. So it would have been interesting to still have a sense of a wounded high civilization. What happened to the sense of itself, the identity this society had up there with this big gaping wound, pummeling smoke out the center, So I don't know. I feel like even that was missed a little bit. I didn't get much of a sense of Piltover in this one, in any of 3 episodes.
All right, I'm going to challenge you on that because I need you. I need you to tell us more on that from a storytelling perspective. we're not critics here, right? Remember, we're storytellers.
Right.
I need more specifics. I want to hear more of your thoughts there.
Okay, so we in season 1 we got Piltover. Piltover was this glittering, sunshine splashed glass and brass high tower world with airships passing by, and there's wealth and a like a Leonardo da Vinci but high tech type of technology and magic here. It was a very compelling and beautifully animated world, and the characters reflected the world. There was the idealist, there was the council, there was the old man, wise old man. You had all these different characters that all seemed to reflect Piltover. And then down below, you had characters that very much reflected Zaun. Zaun is a corrupt, it's a den of vice and criminals and people trying to make it. And they humanized them. They didn't make them one-dimensional or two-dimensional criminals. These were characters that you felt like if you were there in Zaun, you'd be right there with them. I would want to hang out with these guys. They were very compelling people. So you got real good world building in both. So I feel like what's different about Piltover if we start season 2? Well, and let me take one more step back. On top of that, Piltover then got a big upgrade midway through the season with Hextech, right? You had this new golden age of Piltover, like spilling over, and there was dreams and excitement and a sense of ambition. This civilization is going somewhere, but we all knew, and the writers did this beautifully, that there's a hidden danger building below, right? There's things not good. They're ignoring the problems down in Zaun with Shimmer and the crime and the resentment growing. So you got this sense that there was a slow boil. So if you're going to start season 2 and you've got this golden age Piltover as your starting setting with a hole punched in it, I think you should have highlighted that with some time. I think a better way, this is just me, if this was given to me, I think what I would have done is not focused on the immediate aftermath, but I think I would have had someone lying in state with the streets lined up with hundreds of thousands of citizens in Piltover with, determination and solemnness and great grief on their face. This is a resolute people who are going to wreck it. They're going to get justice for this. These people have been roused in the, and in the background, there's the damaged council building. It's still smoking, and then have one of the counselors give a speech. What does it mean? Have a counselor set out for the entire culture there who we are, like the Gettysburg Address, right? Abraham Lincoln, he redefined the national goals there. We're going to have the government of the people, for the people, and by the people will not perish. We have a new lease on this, so you have a leader define the identity of Piltover in this moment and then show the reactions of the citizens, that they're resolute, they're serious, they are hurt. This culture is hurt, it's wounded, and it wants justice. That's a dangerous place because you've got a civilization marshaling for war, right? And we know that Zaun is a tough breed as well down there. But are they ready? They're kind of on the wrong side of this in terms of they call it the casus belli, the case for war. All the momentum is on the side of Piltover. They're righteously angry for vengeance. And so now you have to, so I think I would really set the tone for Piltover's new identity and this new reality. And I don't think I would spend as much time on the minute by minute reactions of so many different characters up there. Anyway, so that would be one storytelling solution.
Thank you. That was a storyteller analysis I was looking for.
Okay.
This may be similar on the same note. It may be different, but it may kind of move us in a different direction. But one of the things which might be good, since we've talked about this side, but I did feel like there was a lot of things that I didn't understand in this episode. And I was looking, there are some extreme emotional hits in season 1. And I was looking for those in season 2. And I mean, some of them were there. Like I talked about the rejection of Vi becoming an enforcer. But, when Kate comes up and says, like, this is what we're going to do. Here are my 3 objectives, and I'm going to lead a team into, the Undercity. It's her and it's Vi. And it's also a whole lot of people that I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters they don't really spend time with.
I know, and that to me was a weakness because because they give the time to bring every one of them out, in their seconds. I don't know who that fish guy is, and I don't know who that drunk guy is either.
And they were giving them stylized scenes and stuff, and I had no investment.
We're going down into the Undercity, and fish guy gets his entrance. I'm
gearing up.
I have no it would have hit so much harder if they had communicated to me how each one of these special forces operatives have an emotional stake in what's going on, like Vi and Kate do. but I don't even know their name. I got Fish Guy and I got Drunk Guy. I mean, there was Maddie, right? Officer Maddie, who made the plea to Vi to say, please come on. But I think it's telling that they got rid of them. You know, that, okay, here are these people who, yeah, we don't know. I don't even know what their names are. But then by the time it came time for the fight, it was between Jinx and Kate and Vi. And the other nameless characters who still got their big entrance, hey, we're going down, they were not there, probably because the writers realized, you know what, actually, these people, we have not established any reason for why these people. I thought that was a weakness.
It might be, again, this might be something that is because we don't know what happens next, but like maybe these characters aren't necessary for the rest of the story, and so there isn't really a need to build them up, because like it could have been one of those like believability things, right? Like it doesn't make sense for Vi and Caitlin to go down there by themselves initially. But maybe there isn't like a long-term need for these characters to be developed. I guess we'll find out.
Then I mean, that could be true. I mean, we don't, in fact, Better with Bacon sent in a super chat for $10. Thank you very much, Better with Bacon.
This is very important to keep in mind.
Thank you. Yes, and this is very important in this moment. I mentioned during my stream, but this is as yet incomplete. Things in these episodes may become more important and deliver a punchier impact when they have the complete picture. That's absolutely the case.
I almost feel like it's a mistake for us to be analyzing on a deep level because we don't know. But it's also like, but it's I want to talk about the show because it's timely and
well, it's Arcane,
right?
I mean, Arcane was one of the best shows in recent memory for me. I mean, it's that good.
Mm-hmm.
And I did wonder as I watched it, and I was glad that I did watch your discussion, James Bacon and Sable Phoenix together, because as I watched it the first time, I was like, I think there are things that I might be missing, but it seems like that I was not missing, that they were just not said. Like, okay, who are these people, that are going down with there? Why do they matter? What is the strategy regarding the gray?
Oh yeah, that was
that was a big thing to me that only seemed to be told in retrospect. In retrospect, by the time you get to like late in episode 3, it does seem like Kate and Vi had used the gray, had weaponized the gray against the Nation of Zaun. Mm-hmm. And because there was a line in there that said, we use that to clear the streets. So that seemed to be their interpretation, that because then you also get in retrospect, in fact, kind of a flashback kind of situation where Kate goes and says and finds out that her family is in charge of the ventilation systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah,
then it was
I think that's right.
When Vi says something like that the gray cleared the streets, that, so Vi and Kate weaponized the ventilation system to actually pump the gray into the streets, in their opinion, to clear them.
Interesting use of words.
Right. Well, I took that to mean they thought that we're going to clear the streets so that when there's a fight in the streets, innocents won't get hurt. Like, to make sure there are not, it's like, that to make sure that there are not innocents in the streets when we start fighting. I at least took that's their interpretation of it.
Their justification, yeah.
Yeah, that we're going to pump this into the Undercity to make sure that everybody runs away. And so when the guns start shooting, it will only be combatants on the street. So that was their interpretation of that. But that was never, that's only my interpretation. Is that other people's interpretation? I'll have to see. I don't know.
No, I again, one of the flaws that I had with some of their setups was, before I understood clearly what they were doing, it moved into stylization mode. So suddenly it was like, and then the animation would change, and then it would back, and I was like, I don't even know if I understand what this is, what's going on here. And the gray, the gas that they were spraying in there was one of them. They kind of moved right into that and got really stylized real quick. So, but yeah, I sensed that, like Total Recall, where they cut off the air supply of the of the slums, so to say, that they're gonna they're going to punish the underworld because they have some upper hand on something like that. That's what I got out of it.
I know nothing about the game, but Druden Fuzz said the 5-person team, I think, is just to remind people.
I wondered that too, if there was some
5-person team
nod to the video game with some of the gear up scenes.
So maybe.
Oh, there's always being nods to the video game.
Well, but if there were in season 1, they were all invisible to me.
But yeah, right. I didn't pick it, so I would never have
it was
thought that.
constant.
Really? Then they did.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
But but also Druden Fuzz says Singed also got not introduced with the name of the first season, but only weaved occasionally and is needed in the plot. My point is that I don't think those other people were needed in the plot. Like, I think you could you have not told this story if Kate shows up and says, here's what I'm going to do. She says she's got several objectives. I'm going to find Jinx. I'm going to take out the Shimmer, which is like their drug production facility. And there was something else, right? What if she had only done that with Vi?
But because they tried that in season 1 and that didn't work. So that's why, like, it doesn't make sense in universe that she would go and do that again. So she's like, this time we're going to go with
there's a little bit of a problem with the Vi setup here, structurally, I think. And of course, it's all how the writer does it. I feel that Vi is a what's the word? Flagship character for the world of Zaun. She came from Zaun. She was toughened by Zaun. She was one of your apex fighters down there. She's a leader down there. And now she's kind of hanging out with Piltover doing this hunt down thing, this dragnet thing. And it feels a little off to me. I feel like she's on the wrong team, and maybe they'll.
I think you're supposed to feel that way.
I know it just
she feels that way. Like, I love that introduction. Like when you first see her in the enforcer gear, she's like so uncomfortable. It's like she's pain. Like she's like, you can tell she doesn't want to be doing this.
And yet she looks so good in it.
She does, but her face is like the face of someone who's like reluctantly betraying someone. Like that's kind of
but she also doesn't. I don't think she's there yet. Like, do they have any? Does she have to cut her hair for this? Are tattoos okay? Like usually these things, there's more to it than just putting on a uniform. There's a whole. There's enculturation. You have to be trained for this. And they're making it seem like this is the Wild West where we just flip the badge over.
You just said Wild West. You know what you were making me think of as you were saying that, and then you said Wild West. What you made me think of was
deputizing
Holiday going to fight. What's his name?
Johnny Ringo.
Johnny Ringo. Right. Yes. I was thinking about that. I was going that direction. That like all of a sudden at the end. Vi, is going to fight Jinx, and whatever, and this fight, and is this going to be an extrajudiciary fight, between a rogue and this bad guy, and then she turns her collar or whatever, and she's wearing the badge, and she's like, "This time we're legal." Man, it could have been a Doc Holliday, Ringo kind of fight.
Yeah, that's a deputy. They deputized him,
right.
And that
no, he deputized himself. He just kind of took that badge.
But it's the pattern of being deputized. It's
right.
Like being knighted, like an Excalibur. You get rights if you're knighted. But I feel like this society was a little bit more hierarchical and structured with a central government and all of that.
Yeah, but didn't Caitlin have to like threaten to remove family funding and stuff to get Vi in there? Like they clearly weren't going to accept her in. She's strong.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like there's a lot of resistance to her, like from storytelling, from a structural standpoint, forcing her into that uniform. It was just, it took a lot to do it. And I just feel like, would she really do this? Would she really want to do? Is she really in throwing her lot in with these guys up here? I mean, I know that there's a romantic relationship with Kate, but the whole culture's up there. There's a lot more that comes with Kate than just Kate. And I don't know. To me, she never quite fit. It seems really at odds. And again, it could all work out. I'm assuming she's going to turn against all these people at some point, but It was just awkward.
In the game, her name is Enforcer Vi. Like,
is it really?
Yeah.
I know
So
nothing
we've
about
all been
the game.
waiting for this to happen. I say we. I'm not actually a player of. I don't know why I act like that, but I guess I have a little bit of knowledge of the
Well, you
game.
knew that.
And I'm like I don't know, a fan of their video games. I mean, no, they're not their video games. They're music videos.
Oh,
So I have a little bit of some familiarity with the lore and stuff. One in particular is what I hope they tell a story about. But side note, Heath, do you remember when I showed you that video game? Why do I keep calling it a video game? I need to talk slower. The music video that was it was like a villain. There was this villain character, and it was like really cool. And there were like snakes, animated snakes and stuff. I know I showed this to you in your house. It's a really cool animated thing about this female villain. You don't remember it?
Oh my God, I don't remember.
I'll just send it to you guys, but this is
Okay,
it's a
send it
League
to
of
me.
Legends. It's
Send it
based
to
off
me.
of a League of
Oh.
Legends character, and I've watched that music video over and over. It literally inspired a story of mine, and I'm just like, I hope they do. I hope they could do this character. Anyway, so what was I saying? I got completely sidetracked. That's her arc. I think this is the right time for me to finally say my one and only critique,
Go for it.
which is
Go.
related to that. Because for me, I felt like I did buy her becoming an enforcer. She spent a good episode wrestling with that. And I think we were already kind of moving in that direction in season 1 when we saw her join up with what's his name? Not Victor, the other guy. Jace, thank you. Where she was, getting the gear, and she was kind of at that point she was kind of going, because she was having the shift of like she was still on side, but there's the people ruling Zon are the problem, right? And then for her to then get to the point where it's like, my sister is a villain and a threat, and needs to be stopped. And then kind of like what Heath was saying, like she's, her goals are aligned with them. She's already been kind of like easing in this direction, like kind of getting more inundated, like goal wise. But she's still very, conflicted about it. And so I think she makes this move reluctantly, and I think she feels a lot of guilt about it. That's what I get. But especially like when she sees that second attack in episode 1, I think that's the moment that it flips for her, right? She's like, okay, I should help my girlfriend or whatever. I should help her and just be fully aligned and commit. But what I didn't buy, well, it's not that I didn't buy it. It was that I felt I was missing a step. Was for her to go, so turning against, joining the enforcers, turning against her sister. I bought all that. But to go to the extra step of being okay with her sister dying, as opposed to just wanting to apprehend her, that was one where I felt like I was missing something. I understood Jinx going to that level completely when Jinx, because we see there's a moment where she, sees that Vi is in episode 2. She sees that Vi is hunting her down. She's really hurt by that. You see her cry, and then afterwards, what was it that I always forget the characters' names. The one that's with her all the time now. Savika. Savika's like, what's that look in your eyes? And she says, thinking about finishing my family. Like, I understood her rage in that moment. She feels completely betrayed. She already feels that way. She's already just on the tiniest thread of she's already feels like her sister has hurt her and is not on her side and all this stuff. And there was this attempt at the end of season 2 to reconnect, and that's already been destroyed. So for her to go to that next level of now she's hunting her down, now she's with the enemy, like she's like, all right, fuck you, so she's like, so I could understand that Jinx is there, but I needed to have an extra little moment like that for Vi. Again, like I can in retrospect understand that she could come to that point because there's enough information here to have her come to that conclusion that Jinx is a violent criminal, like she is. she's definitely a threat. I can understand that she would come to that conclusion. I just didn't see it happen. So that was one that I wanted an extra little moment. It could have been something else that Jinx did that had Jinx specifically, like from Jinx, that had some sort of impact, that had, someone getting hurt, someone innocent or something that like, she throws something out at her about like, I never thought my sister would orphan kids. Like I needed to see a moment like that in this season right beforehand. Because when those two face each other off in episode 3, I was like, I completely understand where Jinx is emotionally. I don't 100% understand where Vi is. Like I understand, but I'm not completely with her. So that was one thing I wanted, was just like a little bit extra so that I knew, because I at that moment I felt a little disconnected. I was like, this is a really major part of the story, and I was like, I felt like I was missing something to be completely understanding both characters.
Yeah, I definitely felt when there were fight scenes, I felt less invested in them. I don't know what it was about season 1, but every fight I cared about. Every fight I cared about. And I also felt they were a little bit more grounded here and there. There was, you had the high stylization in season 1.
I feel like this is all ratcheted up.
Yeah. Well, so they had high stylization, but then they would also come in and you would just get body shots and you would get someone slammed on the ground and you would just be like, ooh, oh man, Vi's getting her ass kicked. And like, oh, she barely got out of that fight. And A, I was invested in the fight, and B, it had style, but it also had like impact. And I feel like this was mostly style on top of style. And I never really got that sense of impact that I got out of a lot of the fight scenes in the first season. I love season 1 fight scenes. I just loved them.
That's an interesting note about like, because that's kind of a directing critique.
Yeah, I think you're right. That would be a directing critique.
Like how much, like the fight between the rat guy and the other woman.
Yeah, and he's such a bad character. So here's a question for you guys.
How much screen time do we need with that fight? Like, that is a directing decision. Like, okay.
Yeah, well, they went for style. I mean, they went, for the cool factor.
That's another time with the music and the fighting. I felt like, as I said before, they leaned into style quite a bit.
Right. I had a buddy who was an artist, and he had a mentor who was a pretty well-known artist in the comic book world. And James Bacon, you might know Tommy Castillo. He's passed away now, but he was a comic book artist. He was pretty big. Anyway, he told my friend, he's like, you just like to draw cool stuff. And that was a criticism, because he's like, you're just drawing it just to make it look cool. He's like, and that's why your stuff's not selling. He's like, there's got to be something else underneath it. There's got to be story. There's got to be character. And then the cool stuff is what will decorate. It's the accessory, right? Mm-hmm. When you just have cool stuff, just the accessory, then you're missing some substance under there. And I definitely felt like I was missing that. And the only reason I know it is because it was such a strong feeling in the first one. I was like addicted to the screen in season 1, from minute 1 to the final shot, addicted to the screen. And I just wasn't, I felt like I was like bumping into the screen and bumping back off and bumping in and bumping back off. I just couldn't quite get immersed in it the way I was before. And again, this could all go away. We don't know where this is going, and we still don't know if they've set it up properly. I think my issue is there is evidence that this is an inferior form of storytelling from season 1. But sequels are hard. Season 2s are difficult.
So the Titter Pig Rancher for $10, thank you very much, says the season's incomplete, sure, but keep in mind Act 1, Season 1 delivered a setup, yes, but it was also a self-contained and complete story, very much able to stand up to deep analysis by itself. It clicked. That's a good point. If you only watch the first 3 episodes of Season 1, you got a whole story.
Well, just to be fair, it's a little easier to set up a story than it is to pick up on a sequel. So yeah, and this is a tough leave. This was a cataclysmic event they left off with. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that is you are asking a lot of writers to know how to solve that. I put mine out there, but we don't know if that was a good idea or not. That's just what I think is a good idea. It is harder to pick up after a cataclysmic event, I think, and do and set something up that quick. That's why I think the time skip was a little important, because it gives the writer a chance to set up their own story in season 2 rather than tying themselves to season one so thoroughly that you know you're stuck with this event for so long. Here's a question for you guys, and I'm curious what you think about this. What do you guys think about the dialogue of season 2? Any thoughts on dialogue?
My only thoughts are just that there are a few parts that I found pretty haunting that I wrote down that are interesting to talk about, but nothing else.
Haunting. That's an interesting word. Did you want to talk about it?
Yeah, wait. Heath just sent me something.
Drew and Fuzz put that link in the
That
Discord.
is Warriors. I'm talking about. Okay, hold on a second.
It. Okay, that's not it.
No,
Okay.
I'm talking about. I'll find it. What is it called? I think it's called Villain. Yeah, it's Villain. Okay.
If I look up Villain, League
oh
of
my
Legends.
god, this music video has 101 million views. It deserves it.
What?
Yeah, I'm sending it in the private chat, Heath.
Okay,
I can't
okay.
believe that's a lot of views. That's one of my favorite of their. I recommend going and watching a bunch of their music videos, League of Legends, because this is like I talked about in our first thing. This is the predecessor. How do you say that word? Predecessor. Oh my god! Thank you. It's like I know how to spell it. I couldn't remember how to say it. The predecessor of Arcane, because they first started, kind of exploring with these little music videos that were exploring some of their characters. There's one that has Vi and Caitlyn in it that I really, really love. That actually might be Warriors, the one you just sent.
Yeah, there was one that really stood out to me. I think in episode 3 that I loved.
Anyway, they're each of those is like its own story, and I love them so much. But yeah, that one is also about a different character. But yes,
So it's this the link. I'm gonna put this in the chat so everybody knows.
Yes, the one with yeah, I think what they're talking about in the chat is correct.
Yeah, the music is very good. I just felt they clashed a little bit more with the storytelling than when, like, what's weird is in season 1, a lot of these videos just kind of melded in with the episode. Like, I didn't feel like they were like new video for you.
What was I saying before I started talking about this music video? I completely forgot.
I asked about the dialogue, and you said there was a couple lines that you thought were haunting.
And did you want me to say which ones they were?
I was asking you, I didn't know if you wanted to expound.
Yeah. So, and some of these are like ones that echo off of each other. So one would be sorry, I'm just reading my notes. Give me a second. Okay, so one is Jinx. So when Jinx and Vi and Caitlyn reunite, one of the first things she says is, no matter what I do, I just can't seem to die. That's haunting me because it's just reinforcing the mental state that Jinx is in at this point. And we see it demonstrated before this, that she has lost her will to live. Like, she's just not, she has no motivation. She has no purpose. Like, after, everything that's happened, like she's gone through her whole character arc in season 1. And instead of being like this, like a rival at this peak, she's actually in the depths and she's just completely checked out. And she's, and you can tell by some of the other things she says, like when she's like disappointed at the end, that she was actually hoping to lose in this scene, when this conflict with Vi. The other thing she says, like right when Vi has her, like, and not exactly chokehold, but she's like, she's on top of her and she says, "I'm ready." And she's like completely relaxed. She says, "I'm ready. I'm glad it's you. It had to be you."
Yes.
Again, horrible. And I kept kept running in my head over and over again after I watched it. I just kept thinking about that moment. Yeah, because it's just very tragic. Because that shows, I'm expecting that's about to change, right? Like, obviously we can't have Jinx being in this kind of a
it does mute her a little,
right? Because she doesn't have as a character, it makes her passive.
Right.
So I'm expecting that's about to change. But yeah, so there was that. Another thing was Vi to her, because this is when she says this, it's a pretty big shift for her. She says, "I'm done." I watched it, so I get the wording correctly. She says, "I'm done blaming myself for your mistakes. Done pretending you're my sister. You're not. You killed her. I'm not going to let you stain her memory anymore." So that's how she's able to justify fighting her, because she's like, "This isn't my sister. It's like this is the person that killed her." And so yeah, so that's like an example of like kind of what I was talking about before, of like some of the mental shifts that she's going through in order to be able to justify that. I still wanted to see a little bit more of that, but but also this, I think specifically it was her saying, "I'm done blaming you myself for your mistakes," because earlier in, I think it was episode 1, when she's like getting drunk, she talks about how she mentions like she was the one that created the monster. So she clearly is feeling a lot of guilt, and she is blaming herself for who Jinx is and who she's become.
Well, Jinx had told her that she was the one who created her.
Yeah, Jinx was like, "It's you, it's your fault," which objectively is partially true, right? Partially true. But of course, Jinx is still responsible for her actions as well. Yes, Vi made a mistake which caused a ripple effect, a chain of reactions that led to Powder becoming Jinx. Okay, but that still doesn't justify anything Jinx is doing. And so there's both of those perspectives are true in their own way, right? Like yes, Vi has some legitimate guilt for what she's done, because she did, her behavior was wrong. But at the same time, she's not responsible for who Jinx is, if that makes sense, right? So I thought that was a really impactful and important moment. But also just like, it was heartbreaking for her to say, "Done pretending you're my sister," right? Like that's like another step of, not only is it not your fault, not only is this not my fault, but
I wash my hands of you.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking of you as family anymore. Like that's like the ultimate. We're ultimately torn apart, as much as we can be.
But then she steps in and saves her.
Right. She doesn't let Kate kill her.
Well, it's because of the little kid. It's because of the kid.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's right. There was a little kid there, and she was thinking about that.
Yeah.
That's right. She goes, "What if you missed?"
Yeah, which is an important moment for them too later, because she's like,
right. That's right.
Yeah,
but Kate was like, "I wasn't going to miss."
And she's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, how could you?" For her, it's like, how could you even risk that? Like that's unacceptable, unspeakable. Like there was a child. Like end of story. But Kate is so dead set on her revenge that she's like, "No, I'm willing to even risk."
Well, but she's also a professional. She's not just like winging it with the rifle. She is a professional.
Right. It wasn't like Kate said, "What of it? I would have shot again."
Right.
No, Kate's response was, "I wasn't going to miss." And I think from the storytelling perspective, you would set up the situation that she wasn't going to miss, that she's that good of a shot.
Yeah, you're right. She wasn't like, "Hey, you got to break some eggs, in war."
Yeah, well, whatever. I would have shot him, and then I would have shot again. Like whatever. Like that wasn't Kate's response. Kate, I had complete confidence in that scene that Kate would have made the shot.
Yes, I do too, but I guess Vi didn't.
But Vi didn't. But Vi had already. But from the storytelling perspective, Vi had already told her, "If you have the shot, then you take it." And then Vi was the one who stepped in and stopped her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The story is set up as though Kate would have made the shot, but technically, no matter what Kate said, you're right. Kate did say something that reflected, "I care. I just would have pulled it off." But technically, that's still speculation. We don't really know.
It doesn't matter how. I'm with Vi here. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. That's not a risk you take. Like, there could be elements of chaos around you that you're not expecting. Like, you think you're going to make it unless yes, your skill. But
right.
It's
not
just
speculation.
There are other things that could happen, and so, yes.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I mean, Vi knows what happens the last time the shot wasn't taken. And it was a lot more than one child got killed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's
we're replaying that whole sequence. I mean, we're replaying that sequence, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the way it's set up is that Vi did intervene, right? I mean, isn't that the vibe that she intervened? Maybe there's multiple reasons, but at least on some level, the kid was an excuse to intervene, at least, if not the only reason.
Like, is the kid an excuse? This is a fantastic question. The kid,
Yeah, I mean, potentially.
it says the kid is 100% Ms. Izek. Ms. Izek. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong.
He's saying what Brianna's saying, and I think there's a total case there that she was acting in purely to save the kid, with no other motives really at all. I mean, that's essentially
no, for sure. It's multiple. I mean, she's acting out of instinct in the moment, and I think even she might consciously think it's just because of the kid. But no, do we believe that that's completely her reasons? No.
Okay, because that's where I'm at. I'm at like 60-40 maybe.
Do we need this kid in the story?
What do you mean? Do we need this kid in the story? We don't know yet, Heath.
Okay.
Yeah, early on,
we have no idea yet. That is not an answer we can possibly question.
The kid,
question we can possibly
the homeless guy in episode 1, the rat gangster. Like, there's several characters I'm just not interested in, and made worse in some cases by I think poor dialogue. I don't get the same vibrance and presence out of these characters that I felt from even side characters in like minor side characters in season 1, like the underworld rat guy. What's his name? Do you guys know his name?
I don't even know what the rat guy's name is.
He's like I don't know. He's like a caricature of a gangster. Like he comes in and he's like, why do people? He's talking to his like accountant. He's like, how come people like you always work for people like me? You think you're so smart, but you don't have the guts. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's like cartoon. This is animated. I get that. But I feel like that dialogue is like Sunday morning or Saturday morning cartoon level villain talk. Can you imagine talking like telling the reason these people have accountants is because they're that important to their business affairs. So, or in this time, criminal enterprise. So I don't know. I thought like it was a weird introduction to that character talking down to his guy, like in a way of like, isn't it amazing that I'm the mastermind and you're so smart, but you work for me? I'm like that's like what they're bothering to talk about. I don't know. It seemed like it just seemed like some goofy dialogue to me. And there was
I mean, I think it's a kind of. I felt like it was supposed to be goofy. It was kind of like he was a little bit of a comedic villain there, lightening the mood a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, but I even put in my notes that it was a tone clash. They went from like overly slow paced and sad to like slapstick silly almost with this new character. So it seemed even that I thought was a little off.
Drudenfuss has a great point that I hadn't thought about. Okay. Kate could not guarantee that she would not miss with all the hex tech malfunctions.
Right, it's a speculation. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Right here. I got it.
Yeah.
Right here.
Kate
I think could not guarantee she would not miss with the hex tech malfunctions.
Mm-hmm. I had one other one, of course, was, and this is going to the depths of what this whole show seems to be about, which is where I didn't write down the exact wording, but when Vi says to Caitlin something like, everybody in my life changes, please don't change. She's asking her to not change. She says she won't, and of course she is like one of the people that's changing the most. And the way that and which I think that is that moment, that conflict between them is just emphasizing that, right? And that's why that's so painful. That was painful. I did like their kiss. I thought it was just a side note because while we're on the topic, I thought it was very cute and sweet. I was thinking about like the way they animated it. It kind of felt like a hug. It was a kiss that felt like a hug, and it really just fit their personalities and like their relationship really well.
You know what detail stood out to me in a positive way? The sound effect it made. I know it sounds like it was like kind of loud, but not like obnoxious. It just sounded like such an authentic kiss like in your mind, like when you kiss somebody, that's the exact so I don't know, in a weird way I like the sound effect of it. It just sounded so real. I know it's such a minor thing, but I thought that worked really well.
Yes, shout out to whoever made that sound effect. Whoever did that Foley. We want to know, what were you kissing when you made that?
Yeah.
Well, Brianna, we have the discussion, and we clipped that as a separate video. Is Arcane homophobic? And so we had that discussion that's clipped
from season 1.
From season 1. We were talking about season 1, and you had the opinions there. Somebody I noticed in the comments wrote that aged like milk, and I have no idea what they were talking about. But is there any type of adjustment in thought that, I mean, because I was not aware, but maybe is there some kind of adjustment in thought we should be aware of after this?
No.
Yeah, I know.
We concluded it wasn't, so I don't really know what there's.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I feel like
I mean the way we worded it that way just to to be a little clickbaity, and because it was just it's YouTube, it was a topic people were discussing. But my note is that because we had a kiss early in season 2, which is a pleasant surprise because it's very common with sapphic media that they wait and 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 wait, and then there's a kiss and that's the end of the show, and it's like, cool, fuck you. Like that's how I feel. Like people just afraid to like share relationships between two women. And so the fact that we have a kiss early in season 2, and the fact that we got a little bit of some foreshadowing, I think, like a not foreshadowing, but a setup in a comment that Jinx made, where Jinx is like, I know whatever that taunting thing is. She says something about like, I know you're really sweet on her. I hope you got the chance to, before. Like,
yeah.
I think we're gonna have more than a kiss later. I think that's implied. That's my prediction based on those two things. So I think we're getting in that direction. But
yeah, and I think they're doing just fine. The way the show has gone, especially early on here, where they're getting ready to invade. There's not a lot of intimate moments, so I feel like they picked the right one.
Yeah, there wasn't a chance for that. It didn't make sense. It would have been rushed and forced. Like,
yeah, you could also
right moment. Yeah,
agreed. You could shoehorn it into where it feels like it's not supposed to. I felt like that was fine. It was the right intimate moment. I felt like it felt natural, to me.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I thought that was handled just fine.
Yep. But that was a very brutal breaking off of that. And so yeah, we'll get to see the consequences of that next. Because any satisfying romantic arc is going to need to have some major setbacks and a major how can they ever reconcile after this? So I think that's
you have to have an adversarial side to it. It's the relationships that are just hunky dory all the time that are the ones that become creepier and creepier. So and that's not happening here. So you want some adversarial issues. You want people to come down on different sides of things, and yet there's still this common attraction. Not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, like all those levels are still there. So they're doing fine. Like I have no issues with that. I think they're doing, and they've done that with multiple characters. I think Jace and I always forget her name. Who's the other council that Jace hooked up with?
I forget her name too.
Oh, Mel.
Mel. Thank you.
That's it. So same thing with them. Like there's intimacy and then there's conflict, and that always plays out great in story, and it's pretty indicative of real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the other things too, just on that note of, it felt very heavy. Like finishing Act 1, it felt very heavy. I think a large part of that was specifically those two, like the way that ended for Vi, because I feel like Vi is one of the characters that we're like, especially invested in. So she's just kind of left alone at the end, It's like everyone's changed, even including, I saw someone online pointing out the fact that Caitlin hurts her in the same place she healed her in season 1, which is also just a painful place to get hit in general. But So yeah, that was pretty awful. Like, just okay, now she's just alone, crying at the bottom of this place in physical and emotional pain. That's our last view of Vi in this season. So it's pretty awful. I really felt for her. I was like, damn.
Well, okay, you got Vi, like, but then also, okay, so it seems like we're setting up Caitlyn then for a villain's arc. So we're supposed to
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Caitlyn
Right.
as
That's
a
how I
villain.
feel.
Okay. A character that I didn't really care for in season 1, but that I did like in season 2 a lot was Mel's mother. Even though there were elements that I didn't understand. Like, again, I was like, oh my God, was there things set up in season 1 that I didn't pick up on that I was supposed to, but I don't actually think that I did. There are things that I was missing. Okay, so you've got Mel's mother, but like the Black Rose, like I was like, oh my God, is that something that I missed in season 1? Like, what was going on?
Yeah, I think that's
I was
a new
confused by
element.
You thought you were surprised by that, Doug?
Yeah, I didn't understand. There were several things I didn't understand, and I just filed it away as rewatch season 1 and see if this makes sense later.
Yeah. So so a lot of people think that James Bacon says Ambessa, or however.
Ambessa, yeah.
Ambessa is the best character in the show at the moment, even though there was a lot of apparent backstory that's like, I felt like there were several things that got dumped on us in season 2 that were not present in season 1. A lot of material about her that might explain this Black Rose thing. Also, like, I didn't know that the Hex Tech thing was dug totally underground and was part of like the ventilation system of the nation of Zon. I didn't know that. We didn't need to know that before. 1?
There was no need for us to know that.
Okay, you can say either there was no reason for us. I mean, that's valid. Okay, there's no reason for us to know that, so we'll bring that up in season 2. Or do you go, that was something that was not set up?
But it's a new season. You don't need to set up things like that in a new season.
Well, if you want the payoff, you have to set it up.
If you want the payoff, you have to set it up. So
yeah, but I don't think we're in payoff territory. We're at the beginning of season 2. We're in setup territory.
That could be true. That could be true. Okay. I will say it's disorienting. There's some things. Now, Heath, you just saw season 1, so you would be better at this than me. There were several times I was like, I'm going to rewatch season 1. I'm going to come back to Arcane season 2 and see if it makes more sense. But there were several times I was confused. I felt like they moved right through some things.
That's how I felt too. The Titterpig Rancher says Ambessa is the Silco of the season. So
yeah, it's Ambessa.
She's a cool character. I loved her at the end. My favorite scene out of all 3 episodes was right near the end of episode 3 when they were pounding on their chest. The drum sound was good. Ambessa was awesome. She was really like willing them to marshaling the citizenry there. I felt like Caitlyn, they had that cut of her like with the white beret. I was like, this all looks good. This looks like a marshaling of citizens, a call to arms. There's a will, there's a justification for this because of the attack. You've got Ambessa leading this, and she was really eyeballing Kate like, you're going to do this. And I felt all of that. That really came home for me. I love that. And the whole time I was like, man, I wish we got this earlier, because now I feel like electricity. I feel conflict in the air. You can't stop this train once it leaves the station. And that's what I love in stories, when you feel like there's a momentum, momentum. So, I think Juden Fuss says all men love violence, period. End of story. It's not that. It's there's momentum there's motion and movement in conflict. And like when the opening started, there was none of that motion. It was like full stop. Let's take a breather. And it's like, but we're supposed to just be getting started. Anyway, the way episode 3 ended, I really love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how you guys felt about it. Did you guys like
that?
Yeah, no,
scene? I thought it was really powerful the way it ended. Yeah. That was very rare.
What's the ending?
I thought Caitlyn looked good in that white beret and that uniform.
looked
Yeah,
like
I
he was
know.
ready to
Yeah,
go.
that's why I would have stopped it. But then there was something else that happened after that I don't really remember all that much. That's what I was asking.
Oh, there was a little.
There was
a little
something else.
setup. Yeah,
Yeah.
they all have a little something else. At
So
the
I
end.
wouldn't, whatever that.
That's not what we're talking about. I was just saying in general,
Yeah,
like how
I
it
would
ended.
have just dropped that. Don't even bother having that. It should have ended on Caitlyn's image. That's where it should have ended. Yeah.
We also have Victor as a messianic character now.
Yeah.
Okay. So Victor. Okay. So we should talk
Wait,
about.
can I before we go to Victor? I just want to say something else about Mbessa. Did either of you guys catch that she was the one that did that second attack during the second attack when they were doing like the memorial? Because I didn't catch that. Someone pointed that out to me.
I did not catch that.
Yeah. So I think they're being subtle about it. I think they're going to make this clear later. But because they remember they said, how did they do this? Like, how could they have slept, snuck in? We had all the security, blah, blah, blah.
Somebody
And
from the inside.
Mel says it's someone on the inside. Literally, it cuts immediately to Mbessa. And Mbessa's just like, arms crossed. And then it cuts away. It's like they're literally telling us, but we still all don't figure it out. Yeah.
But that's a typical cinematic cut scene, right? The cut scene answer the question.
Yeah. So you
ask the question, then you answer it with your next shot.
Right. And that it makes sense because I was like, it doesn't make any sense. Why Zahn? Who is this? Who's attacking from Zahn? It's not anyone attacking from Zahn. It's
false flag attack.
Right. Which is so wicked. She's making her play at power. And she wants the war. So she's getting her war.
Well, but there were Zahn people involved.
Yeah, but she might have like hired them or something. Like she was the one.
She
that was
Star Trek sixed it.
Yeah.
Keith?
Yeah.
Federation and Klingons working together.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say again, I was disappointed with some dialogue. I wrote down some dialogue, and I never once ever crossed my mind, not once, not ever, did it cross my mind to be like, I need to write that one down because it's such weird. You must be part eel. What's my favorite line? The rat gangster. He's like, you keep getting away. What are you, part eel? I was like, oh, part eel. Anyway, I thought that was some weird dialogue. There was another one. She was during like this morning thing. She was a great woman, a good friend. I don't know how we'll face this crisis without her. So you write this stuff in your first draft, right? And then as you read through it, you whittle it down to one. If you say the same thing 3 times, you whittle it down to one comment, or you try to. And then in some cases, like this line, I don't think it needs to be said at all. Silence sometimes is more powerful than saying a line like some of these things.
And what did they say? They said what?
She's like, she was a great woman, a good friend. I don't know how we'll face this crisis without her. I mean, that's just as about as vanilla of dialogue as you could write.
Yeah, that's a fair critique.
And then they also had, and then sometimes it's called purple prose where you overdo it. They did a lot of that. And I didn't get out my pen until later, but they're talking an invasion and scour the basement of demons. Again, you might write something like that in your first draft, but I think you tone it down a little bit in your second and third draft to, something a little, I know they were trying to make it sound like classist, but there's like, I don't know. I thought that was pretty bad dialogue. And also the guy who he's kind of like the, nefarious council member, young guy. He's like, we are under siege early on. And I was like, you're not really under siege. There's one single attack. So a siege is a very specific type of conflict that you're in. You're surrounded. They're cutting off your supplies. A siege. So I just thought it was the wrong word to explain that there. And then there was another one. There was a whole bunch of them that I didn't write down. She says, like, I wish you would rip the scream out of Jinx's throat. Or something like, or the laugh. I wish you would I want to rip the laugh out of Jinx's throat.
Oh, I think that might be what Peter Pig is talking about right now. Forever. The worst purple prose is when Caitlyn's talking to Jace underneath the tree. Nobody talks like that. They made Caitlyn talk in that scene.
Oh, that's the scene. They're under a tree, and she's like, I want to rip the scream out of her throat. So again,
Her,
It happens
yeah.
as a writer. You will write this all the time, but in your first draft, and then you read it and you say it out loud, you're like, oof, that just doesn't sound right. I got to tone it down. And it happens all the time. I felt like this didn't get that process where they toned some of that down a little bit, just to bring it down to a real conversational level, like what Titterpig just said, the way people really talk. That's not really a phrase people would use. So you have to kind of repackage it to get the idea, but in a way that sounds authentic. It just lacks that authenticity.
It's the kind of thing you would write down. Oh, I think what she said was like, I want to tear that laugh from her throat forever.
Yeah.
She's saying, she's poetically saying, I want to kill her. Right. And so that's why Jace is like, whoa, Caitlin.
Right. So that's the impact. That's the effect you want.
Right.
Is this the best line to lead up to that? Or can we say, is there a better way that sounds more authentic? To me, the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. And it's up to and then so as the writer, you got to go back to the drawing board and work that line a little bit. I felt like they left all that stuff in there.
Okay.
Several times.
Then let me ask you this question, and this is a little bit broader question than just Arcane, but it's the storytelling and dialogue question. That's like, okay, what do you do? Does it matter? I mean, I guess it does, of course, matter what type of story you're telling, but whatever. I mean, like when you're talking about trying to understand what kind of dialogue someone should say, what should someone say if they're in Arcane, then versus if they're in your story about the Byzantine Empire, Doug, versus if you're in a Shakespearean play, versus if you're writing Tolkien.
Right.
Like, what does someone say?
So you have to experiment with it. So I'm in the Byzantine Empire. So there's a lot of times where my head goes, and then she says, okay, cool. And this actually
you
never
default
happened,
to your own way of speaking. Yeah.
Right. Where you start to write it and you're like, they would never say it that way. And okay, cool. That never happened. But like something similar to that, you write it down and you're like, they have to say it differently for the Byzantine Empire. And then you write it down and you're like, oh, that's cool. But then you read it later and you write something like, I want to rip the scream from her throat. You're like,
it's laugh. Why do you keep saying scream?
Or whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Such a different.
Or we're gonna scour the basement of demons. I'm like, they're basement instead of the lower levels, demons instead of like poor people or criminals. So you're using.
We're gonna scour. So you're saying that like if I understand, we're gonna scour the basement of scum.
Right.
We're going to scour the lower levels.
I mean, even the word scour is not a word most people use in every.
Right, exactly. You have to.
Yeah, we're going to cleanse the basement of scum. We're going to cleanse the lower levels.
I don't know. Like, when's the last time you've just think about when's the last time you say the word scour? I don't know. Like, cleanse.
Yeah, when I'm washing a bowl, scour the bowl.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But I was trying to bring up the question about different types of literature and what I would say. So
right. So you do have to. You're right.
Titterpig brings up the idea of mixing metaphors. I see my mother's face when they found her, and every fiber of my being just sinks like a stone into dark water. Is that a mixing of metaphors?
Oh, that's interesting. See, now I do remember thinking that line in particular.
Yes.
When I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's weird. That's not how people talk. Now that you say that. Yeah.
So they're saying the fibers are sinking like a stone in dark water. So so this happens all the time. So it's not, I don't want to be critical that the line was written down because we all write stuff like this. We all try. To me, dialogue is world building. How your characters talk is part of the world building. So, this has an edginess to it in Zaun. So the people of Zaun have an edginess in the way they talk. Up on Piltover, they're a little bit more eloquent, a little bit more sophisticated.
And you would expect a little bit more of uncommon words from her here and there, but not like that one.
Right.
About every
one of my little rules is if you're going to use like a word like basement or demons, pick one of those, but not both. Because the second you start to include too many other words to describe something, the sentence itself, you have to decrypt it. And it's really hard on the ears. And that's why no one talks like that. Most people talk so that they could be understood on some level quickly. So if I'm like, hey, we need to scour the basement of demons, you might be like, yeah, what? What now? Who? My basement? So you would lose somebody. So you would lose somebody if you talked like that. So
Most people will be like, look, we got to go down there and hit them hard now. Like, that's how people talk.
Okay. That starts to make sense. Like, because I want to be clear what we're talking about. Like, if you're talking about the actual chorus, the narrator character in a Shakespearean play, and he says something about the warriors getting ready to scour the lower levels of demons, he is the chorus and he's talking that way. But then if you're talking about the actual guy who's leading that attack, he's going to talk differently in the moment to do something.
Yeah, although
Correct.
I don't know
what we're talking about.
Well, maybe that's not true. I was going to say, I don't know if in a play, if it's always like that kind of a play, if it's expected to be natural dialogue, but maybe it is because of course
that is what I'm talking about, though. That,
like,
I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
In times, they were using very natural ways of speaking at the time. So
because
okay,
so we might have.
But it is also a little bit poetic too, so it's different.
It's okay to have poetry and language. The trick is, I call it the flow test. I will actually have an app read it out loud, and I got to listen. And there's really good AI now. It used to be like I would read it out loud, or my mom would read it out loud. But you have to hear it out loud because you might write something that in your head you're like, "Ooh, that's deep. That is good."
Yeah, it sounds good in your head.
Yeah, it sounds real good in your head, and then you say it out loud, and you get tongue-tied, and you're like, "Oh, that line sucks." And so you got to go back and rewrite it. And then there are times where a tough line, certain weird lines will get you hung up, like Scott, whatever it is. Keep rewriting it until that line flows and sounds authentic to the time and the period. No one's perfect, but it's your job as the writer to try to make all the dialogue sound authentic. So, this suffered from some of the dialogue that never quite got cleaned up, in my opinion.
Well, almost like there was
in the reverse. So this is a reverse example, but I think it's an example of the same phenomenon, although it's in reverse. And I think we might have mentioned this on this channel before, that one of the worst lines of dialogue in the Lord of the Rings films comes in the Two Towers, which, of course, I'm a big fan of those films anyway, as far as an adaptation of a work, the Lord of the Rings. But in Theoden, when his son is dead, when Theodred is dead, and they are at his funeral, and they're burying him in the
Simbalmooner.
And Theoden says, "No parent should ever have to bury their child."
That was one of the only added lines.
And that's a terrible line, because I understand, because I didn't know it was an added line, but that's clearly a line that's speaking to a modern audience.
Well, what's interesting, Heath, you're exactly right, because he said in a documentary, he said that one time, I forget where he said he was, a parent did have to bury their child, and they came up to him and they said no parent should ever have to bury their child. So he wanted to include real world dialogue into the movie to capture how he felt when someone said that to him. So it's interesting that you're singling that line out, because that was added in by him.
Okay, that's fantastically interesting, because that's one of those passages that you're like, if you are trying to communicate that information to a modern audience, you might say that on the first pass. Theoden weeps and says, "No parent should ever have to bury their child," except for the words parent and child are completely out of place in Middle Earth, especially the word parent. Especially the word parent is completely out of place. A Middle Earth that is supposed to replicate something like a Beowulf style Norse culture, that all of a sudden at that moment Theoden is concerned about a parent and a child. If he did the same motions, if he expressed this like physically, if he acted that physically the same way, but said no father should ever have to bury his son, then I would have completely understood that and that emotion coming from Theoden. But the use of the word parent,
that's massaging the dialogue till it sounds right.
Yeah. Well, so that was this is a greater storytelling point, as I was trying to understand our points about dialogue, which is apparently better with Bacon, and also other people in the chat also have. and trying to understand when it's appropriate. I mean, I'm saying that's one that stands out to me completely and it's so fascinating if it was actually added as modern dialogue. That's something a modern person would say. It's not something that Beowulf style king would say. That is
why not? I'm missing it. What's
because the word parent is it. Is he concerned with parents? Like everything
about parents is like babysitting. Your parents are home or side. To me, it's not egregious, but I understand what you're saying.
And everything about that character is about his lineage and father and son, and his, and who will inherit after him. That this character is all of a sudden concerned with a very modern word named parent.
Is that a modern word?
Yeah, I have never heard.
I don't know, but I do feel like it is
talking about the word parent. Okay,
let me put it this way: father sounds more dated than parent. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Like if you're asking, I'm trying to write period language. Do you say the word parent or father? Like you say the word father, I think.
Especially in a very masculinized warrior ethos culture, I would imagine. The all father is the god and all that. My point is that you have to be careful when you're writing, when you're writing dialogue and it starts to get, and this is true even when you're writing regular lines, when it starts to get a little fancy, you just have to be on guard because there's a chance you might be overdoing it. And it's okay to overdo it in your early drafts, but you want to get some of that out. The good dialogue is like, it should just impact you. It shouldn't cause you to stop and think.
Yeah, because that's not what dialogue is for.
Right. It should hit you the way if someone were talking to you. And season 1 was rife with this, where whatever the characters said, you're like, oh my God. Like you're just sucked into it because everything that they were saying had an impact on you and it had an impact on the characters. And it never once skipped like a record. When a record skips, it disrupts that music. So to me, that there was a lot of those skips in some of the dialogue in these episodes.
Yeah. So I was trying to look that up. Parent, but this is a specific example. So parent is a rather late
so that's just the association.
But my point was, we got different styles of storytelling. We got different story, and so how do we know when this language that's being used or what is being said, regardless, is inappropriate for the story that we're telling?
How it sounds. You just have to do a sound test, I think.
Yeah, I because part of it is like, thinking about like obviously it's a setting and the characters and like what kind of words they would use particularly. I will say that something that helps me is, I don't do this all the time, but when I do, it's definitely, I feel like saves me time, is I use a little bit of acting technique. So I usually quite often before I write a scene, especially if it's an important scene, like if it's a really important, like emotional, pivotal scene in a story, long before I even think about writing any words on the page, I kind of act it out. And so I usually do this when I'm driving because I'm all alone, and I'll just be like thinking about the scene, and I'll just kind of run through it. And so then it's very natural. So a lot of the stuff that I'll normally get stuck on that I, write, like what you're talking about, Doug, like writing the wrong kind of dialogue, and kind of have to fix it a few times. Like it often skips that whole process because you're speaking it and you're just doing it, and I'll like run through it a few different times, maybe adjusting a little bit like how I'm thinking about the character, or I'll kind of focus because I'm jumping between characters, so it's like sometimes it helps to kind of focus on one for a second because I am kind of getting into it almost like an actor, and that I find helps a lot. And it's also helpful, I have it a few times, and then I get home and I'm like, wait, I have to write this. I don't know how many times I've had someone just try to talk to me. I'm like, hold on, I have to write down dialogue. But then it's also helpful later, right? Like if I am writing it like normally, and then I'm like, something about this dialogue feels weird, say it out loud, and you usually immediately can tell. You're like, oh, that word right there is tripping me up. Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially, but it's not just about reading it. It's about like, you kind of have to act it. You kind of have to like be in the mind of the character.
The delivery has to have the impact the author intends, and if you write it poorly, it won't have that impact. So that's why it's so crucial to get it right. And a good sign, and I'm sure everyone in the chat and Brianna and Heath,
it's always a good sign when you're reading a book and you begin to act it out and you begin to want to act it out because they're nailing the dialogue. You get the characters and it just starts. And Brianna, a little thing. That happened to me with reading your Dark Goddess script.
Oh,
I think I told you that I began to act it out in my head as I was reading, and also several times with City of Reckoning. So,
cool.
You did your dialogue rang true constantly to the point where it almost to read it was almost to want to act it out as you read it.
That is a really cool high praise. Thank you.
It is. I mean it as high praise because I feel like a good writer will do that. They'll get you into it, and the dialogue will flow really smoothly.
Was definitely the case. What I just described was definitely the case for both of those projects. Like all the really important scenes that are like emotional, pivotal things, like a character, something that's like a character relationship shifting or whatever. Like I definitely was saying that out loud to myself before I wrote it down. And that's also a sign for me too, that because villains are, I feel like a challenge for me to write. I feel like I had to put more effort into them
because you're so pure of heart.
Sure, we'll say that. It's more that with villains, my mind tends to go to cliches first really fast. I don't know why. So I always have to work around that. And that part of how I know that my villain's starting to work is when, especially if I'm writing a script, if I'm getting excited, I'm like, I kind of want to play this character. I'm like,
yes,
okay, here we go.
Yes,
I finally
100%.
got that with my horror script. It was like almost towards the end, like one of the last drafts of that script where I was finally like, oh, well, I had that feeling with the antagonist. Anyway.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I recommend that technique for anyone out there that might be like looking to
100%. Me too.
But do it with actual acting techniques, like take an acting class and then go and like act out your scenes. And it's incredibly fun.
That's awesome. By the way, Retro Nerd Girl's here.
Retro Nerd Girl is here. I was
Retro.
to say that. Yeah. Retro. I was to say we just saw Retro come in. So yes. All right, but probably the idea of dialogue, I think, is something because we also read things that does not have realistic dialogue in it, but is still amazing. And I think that's important to pay attention to because, Brianna had go through the Iliad. We got a whole bunch of there are situations where somebody all of a sudden starts some, massive monologue, and then somebody else responds with another massive monologue. And that might not be exactly the way people talk to each other.
Well, that's not really dialogue, though. It's poetry. Whole thing is poetry.
Poetry.
Well, and there's something called echo chamber dialogue that you want to avoid. And it's when a character goes, "We need to invade Zon," and the other character goes, "Invade Zon?" So when one character just repeats what the other character said, you're making a mistake. You're supposed to identify that in your every now and then. It sounds so perfect you have to keep it, but it should be extremely rare for a character. And you definitely don't want it to happen more than once in a scene, and you don't want it to happen. There are some writers I'll be reading, and they'll do it constantly, and they just can't. Yeah, like
there's a
what do you mean?
screenwriter who does this really well. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's the one that wrote, who does the exception to this really well. And that would be the screenwriter who wrote The Social Network. So this is kind of like an advanced skill because like what you're saying is like really important, but then there's also some writers can get to this point where they're able to use repetition as poetry, but it's repetition as poetry, but it still sounds natural. And it's like, yeah, The Social Network is an amazing screenplay because it has that element of like the dialogue in there is like, it has this rhythm to it, but there's like, it's like almost poetic the way the certain kinds of repetitions happen, but it's not like what you're saying. It's not like filler. It's like this, I don't know. You could do a whole
and another commercials are great at it. Uber Eats. Wait, did you say Uber Eats? I said Uber Eats. So they'll just keep saying the same thing over and over again to drill it in your mind. That's interesting. I'll have to rewatch.
Yeah, the very first scene in that movie has some of that going on. That's a good one to just like watch that first dialogue scene. There's little elements of like intentional repetitions done well that doesn't fall into the problem that you're talking about.
Awesome. That's great. I love when exceptions to the rule work. I love it. I really do. Because it's good to know why the rule exists for a reason. And a lot of times if you follow the rule, your writing will improve. But Brianna's right. If you can get to a point where you know when to break the rule, you're probably doing something right as well. So, but with dialogue, you definitely want to test it out. Definitely test it out, and you don't want to get stuck with some clunky dialogue. I wrote a Byzantine book, and let me tell you, there's probably still some in there, but it was so hard to get the dialogue right over and over again. I had to read it out loud constantly for 2 years to get the dialogue right in some places. So anyway, my main point is I feel like they kind of maybe rushed it, or they just didn't do that here, which is no excuse because it took them 3 years to get this out.
You're right. Yeah, no, that's always the thing. The script needs to be right. So, I mean,
oh, what did you guys think about the
over here? I didn't have a whole.
What did you guys think about the casino fist? With the video
fist?
game casino sounds?
Oh, I didn't understand what that was. Oh, I did not understand what that was.
Was that something in the game?
She took the thing that she used to use in season 1 where Vi was like the number 1 on this game, and then Jinx tried to do it and she was only number 2, so she disassembled that thing. She disassembled that and used that to create a new arm for Zvika, but she did it in like a very Jinx style. Very chaotic.
Right, that you're gonna decide what type of attack your arm does when you're in a fight based on a right. What is that thing called?
Let's leave it to chance. I just thought it's weird. I had mixed feelings. I loved the sound effects. I mean, loved the sound effects. The 8-bit sound, the casino chimes. It's like addictive melody. It's these addictive sounds that they've done studies, and people will stay at these slot machines because it's such a pleasant sound motif. It had all that, but it was so odd.
I wonder if that is.
I thought it was odd. I did also think.
I didn't know what was good. Anyway,
it's a weird way to try dealing with a fight.
Yeah, but I think it's ridiculous, but I think it speaks to Jinx's character, because she's the one that created it. Certainly not practical. I'm in the League of Legends wiki for Savika. I'm gonna go to relations.
Trudent Buzz says Savika is not in the game.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I actually like Savika as a character. I loved her in season 1, and she's okay so far in season 2, but she's a cool character.
Did you guys hear that meow? Did that get caught? Probably.
I did hear a meow.
Yeah.
What this is my sister. My sister's my roommate, and she's the one cat has become my friend. And now that we're friends, now there's demands, and it is in the evening time. In the evening time, this cat is supposed to be allowed to come into my room and cuddle with me, and it's very rude of me to have my door closed right now. Like, how could I possibly not let this cat in? So that's what the meow means. It's
time to come inside.
Can I come and cuddle with you, please? Hello. Cat.
See how important that dialogue is?
Cat,
Writers,
I will not be told
you
what
gotta
to
get the
do.
dialogue right.
It's funny.
Well, was there anything anything that we haven't talked about that we should? I know we were going to talk about Victor, we
had not talked about Victor.
Shimmer Messiah.
We had not talked about Victor at all.
We've gone through all of my notes, so I will go ahead and hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like I said, I did not necessarily have a huge amount of notes too. I had a lot of thoughts, like loosely connected thoughts, kind of like you did, Brianna. Like Victor, is probably a big thing that we had not talked about. Like I said, when I said, okay, we're going, or as the consequence of the RPG attack on the council, this must have important consequences.
Okay.
Oh, I think he's frozen.
Oh, okay.
And
there
you are. You froze
did
up.
I freeze?
You froze at a funny moment
Oh,
because
okay.
we're all just like waiting
I
for
said
you to
You
make
said
it.
there must be you said there must be important consequences.
By and large, that did happen. Oh, and I thought that by and large that did happen. Because we have the deaths and things like that do propel the rest of the story. So I thought that was good. Victor's, because we have deaths, so that's great. And then we have You're Totally Okay, which is Mel and Jace.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have one person who is crippled.
Mm-hmm.
We do have the crippled person, actually. But then we have one person who is saved from death. So this had better be extremely consequential. And it seems like it's going to be.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Well, it's kind of a world-changing power, right? Because it, in some ways, nullifies this side effect in the underworld of Shimmer, which played a pretty crucial role in season 1, because you could then you get manpower if you have Shimmer. You could muster these poor souls to fight for you, and they become almost like super thugs or super soldiers in a fight. So, this changes that. This is a change. It also introduces a strange, not necessarily bad, but a new type of archetypal character into the story, which is the spiritual, or almost like a religious
this is new
type of the healer. It's a type of character. Game of Thrones had it with God, what was that guy's name? He was played by Jonathan Pryce, the religious guy. Help me out here.
I wasn't really into Game of Thrones. Sorry.
Anyway, but you add another layer when you add a new type of archetype into a story. So the jury's out for me with Victor, but
the Sparrow.
The Sparrow. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The Sparrow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because
the High Septon, who's the High Sparrow. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
It's an interesting shift for, well, maybe not shift, but like direction for his arc, because I think he has remained. Well, he hasn't remained, but like it seems like he's the one that's kind of returning, you might say, to their original values, the original values that he and Jace proclaimed, because they both kind of in season 1, had their dips into, the dark side of power, and he saw the consequences, and he's like, nope, and so he's just like, I'm going this way. And
pretty
so
clear
he's kind of
headed
parting
about it, too.
paths with Jace, which I guess maybe Jace is going to continue to go in a negative direction. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what that's going to lead to.
Look, we have maybe someone new in the chat. Guinea Pig,
Guinea Pig. Welcome. Good to see you.
Said I'm a bit worried with how much they are adding at the same time in the season. I feel like the Hex Core, Hex Tech impact would be greater without the Black Rose. We did discuss that. We were a little confused by it. I felt like they were on brand when it was like, the Piltover, Golden Age, Steampunk, Hex Tech. Like they had a good brand there. So they are messing with the brand a little bit. That's what I felt. I don't know if they transitioned into season 2 with I don't think they gave us that contrast yet. And so, yeah, now we're getting these changes, and now Shimmer can get over to. So there is a lot of change. Whether it's good or bad, we'll have to see. And welcome, Guinea Pig. Welcome to the conversation.
So welcome. Yes, it's great to have you here. Thank you very much. Yes. So Jordan Fuzz says, go ahead, Brianna.
I was going to briefly say, I think Black Rose must be something from the game. I just pulled up a very big wiki about it, so it looks like it is. Yeah, it looks like it is.
There were several things like that. I was like, oh my God, did I miss that from season 1? But Jordan Fuzz, Victor is an inverted Jesus who first rose to and then descended down to become the savior figure. So Jesus comes from on high, he dies, he descends into hell, he comes back. So in this case, Victor, Jordan Fuzz is saying, which I think is very interesting, Victor was from down below the Undercity, came up to the upper city and died and returned to the Undercity. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And better than Bacon says, an inversion of Christ.
Huh.
That's fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he kind of it's always interesting. He kind of hatched in this story in a birth-like way, which was
a different look for his character and everything.
Right. And I didn't also completely understand why he couldn't hang around, like the conversation that they had.
Well, yeah, they may not just have explained it yet. There is another little writing tip. There is something called a character shift versus a character change. And you do not want to do character shifts. Character shifts are when your character suddenly goes in a different direction. And amateur writers do this all the time. They think it's a character change where the character's like doing one thing, and then they're like, you know what? I am not going to do that. And then they just do this other thing. We don't know how that happened. You know, the writer thinks that they're showing you characterization by these shifts in direction, but they haven't set up any of it. You want character change. You want the character to experience a few things and then act against their pattern. That's a character change, and that's what you want. So right now, Victor has done a character shift, but we may get more on that. So I'm not really going to criticize it because he just had a literal metamorphosis. So a sudden shift in behavior might be reasonable in this case.
Yeah, it's kind of explained in the world building or whatever, like circumstantially.
Right. So it's a pretty dramatic shift in his character. If you think about everything in season 1, you know, he was kind of invested. You know, he had a pretty interesting arc actually in season 1. So this is a whole new Victor at this point. You know, we're dealing with almost a Victor 2.0 here.
Right. Yes. So the Titter Pig for $5. Thank you very much, Sable. Thank you very much. Sable says the gray, the black rose, and the wild. Oh, we didn't even talk about the wild runes.
The wild runes
should have been introduced separately once per episode. They all land in episode 2, and it's too much. And
Agreed.
I think that's why I thought that they were recalling things in season 1. And I was like, my God, did I forget something like that? Because I feel like those things were things that I was expecting to have set up or something like that. Because, yeah, the gray, I mean, there is the idea of the fumes, but had they talked about it being called the gray yet? I'm not sure.
They did.
They did? Okay.
Yep.
So maybe the gray is the one that was the most set up, but the black rose, I did not understand. And the wild runes were also something that were set up, that were
now
set up here. Yeah.
I do want to say on the positive side, and I don't think I'll get too much pushback here. The cinematography in season 2 is still top tier. There were numerous scenes. Now, I did feel some of it was over stylized, but we already addressed that. But there were numerous times in episodes 1, 2, and 3 where I thought the animation was absolutely incredible. In the imagery that they animated, there was some really great stuff.
Okay, so we have the notice here that Black Rose was set up in season 1 as the reason why Ambassa needs Hexa. In season 1, we don't have a name for them. It's just someone who killed her son.
Okay, so they kind of hint at it, but they...
Oh, so that's a soft introduction.
Oh, the man...
That's a writer setting something up. Well, they set it up, but it is confusing the way they're handling it so far in season 2.
I recall that. Okay. Okay. So it was... anyway...
Interesting.
And I said I've only watched the whole thing through once, and I started to watch some of season 2 again. But I agree that the gray, or at least the gray's relationship to Kate and Vi as they're going down, needed additional clarification. The Black Rose needed additional clarification, and the Wild Runes needed additional clarification about what it's doing. I thought anyway.
There was a really cool shot when they experienced that giant Wild Rune, where Jace was in a mirror where his motions were moving down mirrors like dominoes. I thought that was a really cool shot.
I love the introduction of whatever's going on there. I'm looking forward to that. That was very like we're dealing into some spooky shit. Especially when we had that brief flash where it was like this giant being that was like holding him. I was like, oh my God, is this like a deity or something that's behind the magic? I'm very intrigued. That was all. Yeah, it was very like what's the word I'm looking for? Like what's the word I'm looking for? You know, where reality is all messed up. There's a specific word, and I can't think what it is.
Surrealistic.
the fantasy of
I'm
it.
thinking of like non-Euclidean geometry. Or something.
Abstract.
That's what I'm thinking of, like non-Euclidean. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but like
Abstraction.
Yeah, but specifically this idea that like we're like the laws of physics that we're familiar with are not applying here. And that's very intriguing. Like it's
incongruous.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think non-Euclidean is what I was looking for. But I don't know.
Okay.
It may not necessarily mean what I think it means, but that was, I think, what I was looking for. This idea that, like, yeah, it's just intriguing that it's something very other, something very mysterious, and yeah. So I'm curious to find out where that is, because we have a little bit of a, what is it that he says? He says something like, what have we done? so there's definitely going to be more there. Like, yeah. I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. The animators are up to the task. I still think Arcane is one of the best animated shows of all time, to be perfectly blunt. I love the animation style of Arcane, and I still got my fill in season 2.
Yeah, it was definitely good to be back home.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else we need to address? I mean, I'm still with it. I mean, I'm still hanging with it because.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I don't care. Honestly, Arcane season 1 was so good that it's earned my full attention all the way to the end, no matter what happens or whether I'm liking it or frustrated with it or not.
I agree.
I'm going all the way to the end, no matter what. It's earned that. And even if I don't like season 2 and there's going to be a season 3, I will watch all of that too. So
there won't be. This is going to be the conclusion of these characters.
But they might do an Arcane reboot type.
But they're probably going to explore the world more. So they're probably going to do more stories, more characters. But it's a two season deal, and the creators are very defensive of that. They're like, yeah, there's a lot of shows out there that just get dragged on, and we want to make sure that we end it where the story wants it to be.
So they have an idea that this ends in 2.
Yeah, and they had that plan from the beginning. So,
well, in some ways that's great, because this is a world that
let's go.
This is a world that can support multiple characters and multiple storylines and reboots. And like, this world feels like it could go, like, it feels very expansive. So I'm fine with that. If they want to really hit hard and really drive these characters home, go for it.
Yeah, the showrunner said
an Arcane movie one day.
I forget his name, but the showrunner, he said, like, to whoever his boss was, he said I could tell stories in this world for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So there's some passion there for sure. Obviously.
Yeah. Now I will say, as much as I felt frustrated with season 1, I have not lost hope at all. In fact, I do feel
season
like
1 or season 2.
I'm sorry.
Act one.
Act 1. I've had frustrations with Act 1. So I would say at best it's a mixed bag for me. But I do feel like they have conflict set up. So Act 2 does promise to be a little bit more in line with what I think we were all looking for. And some people loved Act 1. I guess I'm speaking for the people who might be in line with what I'm thinking. Act 2 seems to be what we were looking for.
Yeah, the setup is pretty intense. So yeah. I'm literally like in this place of like, it's been a long time since I've ever felt this way about anything that I've watched or read. I'm just eagerly awaiting for Saturday to arrive, because I really want to. So because I didn't watch the first 3 immediately, I was just busy on Saturday. But I watched them Sunday night, and now I'm just like, I immediately have like making sure my schedule's clear, Saturday afternoon, so I can go and watch the next 3 episodes as soon as
Saturday night. I'm planning on coming in and watching Saturday night.
I'm desperate to find out what happens next.
I'm fired up. I'm fired up. This is still Arcane, guys. This is still Piltover and Zahn. These are it's Vi. Yeah. Vi is one of my favorite new characters in years.
Me too. Me too.
And I like Jinx. I love these characters. I actually miss Silco. I thought he had such a great presence in the first one, so I think his presence is missed. So we will see who fills that vacuum, and there's a few candidates lining up. So
We're there.
So also check out Better with Bacon. So Better with Bacon's channel. If you are here watching, click on his link right there and go over and subscribe to his channel. He says he'll be watching on Saturday and then discussing with Sable on Sunday. So if I'm able to watch on Saturday, I stopped by Bacon's channel on Sunday, but I said I could not watch because I couldn't watch their discussion. I watched it later, but I couldn't watch it live because I hadn't finished Arcane season 2, Act 1 yet. So I couldn't stop by, and so I finished it later. But if I could be only because I said, hey, I'm going to start from the very beginning. So this time I should. So if you want an analysis on Sunday with James Bacon and Sable Phoenix, please click on the Better with Bacon channel, his link right there, and subscribe to it. So
I can't wait to listen to that convo, guys. On Bacon's channel.
Yeah. So hopefully then I will be there with you on Sunday and can actually participate. I dropped by and said, hey, go at it, guys. I'll watch later. And I did. I watched your guys' complete conversation. But I just couldn't do it live because I hadn't finished it yet. So hopefully this Sunday I'll be able to be there live, and then we will be here Tuesday again. We'll be here 1 week from now.
Yep. Next 2 Tuesdays.
Awesome. This is great.
2 Tuesdays. Right. Yep. All right.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see everyone in the chat too. Drew and Fuzz, it was awesome. We probably don't agree on a lot of things, but I always like your perspective. And we had some newcomers in there, so it was a great chat, great conversation.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here, everybody. I will be here at 9:30 in the morning on the Heath's Geekverse channel. We're going to start doing some more game design and things like that. So on the Heath's Geekverse channel, I hope to see everybody there. This is great. All right. I look forward to seeing how it develops. I'm glad we're doing this. I mean, I thought, hey, we'll do this season, this Act 1, but hey, I'm glad we're going to do all of this because this is important. I mean, I hope it continues to just blow me away. I mean, I hope it's amazing.
Me too, man. I haven't lost hope.
Do. Please, I hope.
I'm excited and scared.
I hope they blow me away.
I'm excited
because we ended up disappointed with the House of the Dragon.
The finale didn't give us much of anything.
I want them to deliver with this one.
I know. I don't want to be let down. I'm going to be very hurt if I'm
really
let down.
Want them to deliver this.
If we're let down, just go back and watch season 1. That's what I'm going to do. That's always waiting there for us.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thank you. Please do like the stream if you are here and subscribe if you're not. And I will see everybody on the Heath's Geekverse channel tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning for some game design. Thank you so much for being here. I have loved it. And thank you both, Brianna and Doug, for being here.
Thanks.
It was an amazing conversation.
Brianna, for having me on.
Later, everybody.
See ya.